Welcome to Magic Without Fears, the Hermetic podcast with Frater RC. My truly honored guests today are Paola and Nick Farrell. Nick is the author of many popular works in the Golden Dawn tradition and modern occultism, and now they have been writing the Lord Manticore Occult training blog, which, if you're not following its monthly articles, you're falling behind. Stay tuned for Complete Geomancy by Nick, his newest release. Holy art thou, Lord of the universe. Holy art thou whom nature hath not formed. Holy art thou, the vast and the mighty one, Lord of the light and of the darkness. Welcome to Paola and Nick Farrell. Welcome, guys, to the Frater RC show, as my fans love to call it. How are you doing today?
Perfectly fine. Thanks for the invitation.
It's an honor to have you both on at once, especially. And of course, we tried to do this before. Technical difficulties. I got a new laptop, and we're ready to rock and roll. With all systems go, and as I said before, you don't do many podcasts, do you, Paola? So it's a special honor to have you on.
Yeah, that's the first one actually. So
this is the very oh wow.
Yep.
Amazing.
You're the initiatory host.
I will take that with due honor and reverence. Absolutely. Well, do you listen to many podcasts? Are you a podcast listener?
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah, actually, I've seen the last one you've done, last video with Dr. Litva. Very interesting. So
yeah, he's doing amazing work.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude.
He's releasing his new Hermetic 1, I think he said. So it should be out in a few months.
I think they're about to ship the first orders of the limited hardcover, like right now, like very soon in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
I think he was talking about paperback or something.
The paperbacks coming once the hardcover sells out. There's only 500 hardcovers, so it'll sell out probably relatively fast since it has a very general, it's a very broad appeal. Of course, I was surprised actually they're only doing 500 hardcovers, but you know, like we were saying before we started the show, Nick, these days you gotta, you know, it's a different era, and yeah, the paperback and the hardcover are both really beautifully typeset. Of course, Gabriel over there in Quebec does a great job with both Anathema and the new thing Fount Unlimited, which is the new publishing. This is great. We're starting the podcast with a shout out to the Canadian publishing companies and Dr. Litwa. They'll love it. I'm going to get so many messages just from them saying, why do you keep talking about us?
No, because I myself discovered him quite recently. So I've been watching his YouTube channel for, let's say, few months, not that long actually. So together with Justice Ledge, of course, because I cannot not mention him. So
we love the sledgehammer.
Yep, we do. So I was very curious, and I like the idea of and I want to go for a Hermetic 1 because I wasn't sure before, and now he's releasing this new edition, so I think go for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be you know, I've been enjoying it for a while because there was a independent publishing of it first before You know, so I did the Audible audiobook, actually. I was going to not talk about it much, but Gabriel was like, no, go talk about it. So I did the Audible recording for that book, and it was a lot of work, and I really enjoyed it and got to live the text, of course, being the voice of Asclepius and Hermes and all these characters. And that's on Audible. You can get that on Audible, people. Sign up for Audible for free, get a free download of me doing Hermetic 1. Again, if that's all I'm remembered for in life, I'd be very happy, man. Because it's just such a beautiful text to do. And I set up a whole thing and got a really nice mic and all that. And yeah, it was an honor to work with David. And he has his Gnosis Academy. Look at all these shout outs we're doing for other people. It's amazing. But yeah, that's what we are, is essentially all nerds for this stuff, aren't we? So
yeah, that's cool.
How I know we got Nick here too, but he's a patient man. Can I ask you one more thing? How did you get into, again, not many of us know much about you. How did you get into occultism and spirituality in general?
Pretty much standard. I mean, starting normally when you ask people, they always come up with a story from childhood for some reason, and normally starts more or less in the same way for most of us, I think. It's not something that, at least I think, most people develop this thing at an early stage, childhood or teenager maybe. So you have some kind of experiences when you're very young, but you're totally immersed in a mundane world. And despite the fact that I had part of the family that was into esotericism and Kabbalah, especially my aunt, so I had some kind of influence. I had her teaching me yoga when I was very, very small. Those things are not really understood when you're particularly young, but just with time, you just have something that it pulls you more and more towards that direction. You don't even know what the hell you're doing or why. It's just normal. Again, after certain experiences that obviously had an impression, you have an automatic pull towards esotericism in a way that you cannot really explain. It's not something that you force yourself into it. It's not that you do it because it's cool, because it shouldn't be like that. You do it because you feel that you have to, because you feel that you really don't have a choice, because everything else that is ordinary, it just feels off. And that's something that I didn't know how to approach initially. So I did everything more or less by myself. Like, you buy books, you try stuff by yourself, but it wasn't that great. And I didn't find my aunt's approach that fulfilling, let's say. So what happens that I had few experiences with some alleged groups. I wouldn't say it was an esoteric group, but those fluffy bunny energy Castaneda, Carlos Castaneda teachings, and all that. It was basically a guy that in the end it was sued for fraud. So, and that was basically my first real experience in the outside world, in contact with something that it wasn't just me, my room, my books and stuff like that. So after that, I wasn't particularly happy about what was offered. Consider that I grew up in Rome and by the Vatican, and I was very, very close to the Vatican, working nearby the Vatican. So my Catholic Church influence was very extremely strong. But I had always something inside of me that it rejected it, like it was something that I wouldn't be able to explain. It's just that I can't do this. I just can't do this. And no, I was just weird to anyone else, like my friends, and they looked at me while I was picking up these books at book fairs and bookshops, and they looked at me like I was the weirdo. So for a while I did it by myself, and because experiences like that group didn't go very well, until a point where I had some kind of breaking point in my life where I had a crisis. My dad died, and at that point I had a clear push into a specific direction. And it took me 2 years to come into contact with a friend, a person that became a friend later on, who was a member of the Nottingham Temple in England, where Nick used to initiate. So for some reason, among all the options, because I had different options, and there was a temple in Naples, what happened is that for some reason, I clearly remember that one contact disappeared, and I was left with my friend contact, his number, and I contacted him. And he was the one that introduced me to everyone, to the Ciceros. So when I went to Nottingham in 2007, I expected, the point was to go there and have a chat, meet them basically. And I felt very, very grateful. And, when you have this kind of admiration from afar, and you have this sense of awe, and I felt very grateful to be there. And at some point they came closer. I got closer to them and to talk, and Tabitha said, "Someone is getting initiated tomorrow." And I said, "What?" What the hell? I was not, nobody told me that I was going to get initiated. I thought I was going to get there to have a chat and just know each other. And I thought that people had to check that I wasn't a nut job or something like that. And so, and then the next day I was initiated to the Not, and I met Nick. So that was it. And that was the start of a very long journey, very difficult, but the best choice of my life. I think, and I will always think, that the GD system, as especially as we developed it when we got together, is the most complete system that is available, in my opinion. According to my personal experience. So I just think that it gives you everything you need to develop yourself, although it's not like an endpoint. It's not where everything is achieved, everything is obtained through the GD system. I think that it's, I don't want to say a starting point, but it's the most complete basis from which you can move on and see where it leads, because GD system is not something that leads, it's not something that is the same, and not everyone experiences it in the same way. So that's a very personal journey, and it's up to, and not many people are actually capable of enduring the various stages that it puts you through. So I would say that it's very complete, very challenging, and not for everyone, but it's exactly what I wanted at that time. It was perfect. It was the right. I needed a structure. I needed a framework, and through that you can develop, understand, and in time you will be able to, you know what you said before about the diagnostic tools. That's it. You need to understand yourself. If you don't have these tools, if you don't go through those various steps and experiences, and I'm saying mostly difficult ones, you're not capable of understanding who you are, where you're going, or what you're meant to be doing in this reality. So that was it. That was my experience. Condensed, obviously, because it's a bit complex. But I think you know what I mean, because you've done something similar, I guess. So
yeah, I had my own trail of breadcrumbs. It sounds like you're very lucky to have found that pathway to the Nottingham group. And was Tabby there at the time you showed up there? Was Tabby Cicero? She was actually there physically.
Both. Yes. Tabitha and Chick. I met them
cool.
there.
Wow.
They were the one that told me that I was going to be initiated, and I say, what the hell? Because I just didn't expect it. It was seriously, I'm still very grateful. It was a major gift. I was planning to get the not. I just didn't know it was that day. I thought it was going to be the next few months, I guess. Well, they decided for me, basically. And I was completely I was on the moon. I mean, I was a bit scared at the beginning, because again, I had you have a lot of respect, you know, for the system itself. I saw it as very initially even difficult to access, right? But they were great. I mean, they were very friendly, and that was a great experience. I mean, the not together with a couple of other initiations, I would say that definitely a marking point that changed everything. But that's what I wanted. I mean, I was very, very lucky that I got there, and I didn't get to, let's say, other temples / orders that were not exactly that, let's say, or I wouldn't recommend them. Let's say, that's it.
Before we move on, I want to say what you said earlier about it being the best decision of your life. That's something I resonate with very strongly, and I feel very lucky about. Even though I was definitely in one of those other orders, you know, the temple we had here in Vancouver had great people in it, and I was really lucky to find it. You know, when it changed my life, it turned my life around. I was a very bad student in school. I just wanted to do role-playing games and Magic the Gathering, and I was depressed and you know, trying, you know, borderline suicidal, I think, at 12, 13 years old, you know, and discovering magic and witchcraft and spirituality and Hermeticism. You know, it gave me this whole new
Purpose.
perspective, purpose. Yeah, I like that word. That's a good word. And opportunity to, yeah, to understand myself and do something about it, and not just be a victim of what I felt was my circumstances in life. And it's funny, 2 years after my own initiation, or a year and a half, I went to Nottingham in person. This is in 97, just to see another member in our order who was a physicist there doing experiments on sound and water molecules at the university. And he showed me around to Nottingham. So I've seen all the sites. Really cool town, Nottingham, with the big tree and all the Robin Hood stuff. And I can only imagine, as you were talking and sharing your story, I was just imagining going on that journey, you know, discovering books in Italy. I used to hide mine in my sock drawer because it wasn't cool to do this stuff, right? Of course, then your buddy finds them and is like, my mom's a cop and she's into Wicca. And you're like, oh, wait, what is this world? Okay, maybe it's not, maybe I'm not such a weirdo. Maybe there's other weirdos and I just need to find them. And so, yeah, hearing your journey, it's so compelling to hear someone's story of finding their way. And I'm sure everyone listening agrees. It's bright and early in the morning over here in North America, but we do have people here listening. So thanks for being here, people. Good morning indeed to you. Thanks for all the comments. I'm not going to put the comments on the screen, I think, today, because I think it's a bit too distracting. Is that distracting?
Possibly.
Yeah, it's a little distracting. We'll keep it more intimate for this one. But yeah, thanks everyone for being here. And you know, if you have questions, you can super chat them or whatever. I guess the next question, because we have your beautiful husband here, is before we get on to talking about the occult training blog, and which is what I really, there's so many things to talk about, and if people have questions, shoot them up in the chat. But what has your journey been like with Paola as a magical partner in creating everything you guys have created? I don't even know where to begin, because you both have done so much, and you've charted some of your story in Beyond the Sun, which is a great book about Robert Falcon, but also shares glimpses of some very personal moments you guys had in New Zealand, in Hawke's Bay, with the sun and the mountains and all that. What's that been like?
Well, I think if you look at what we've done over the last 14 years, none of it would have been possible for either of us to do by ourselves. It's something that we both did together. I mean, even to the point of, you know, creating a vault, which was huge. I mean, I still am not good speaking Italian. So for us to build that, which required, I could make it on a computer, but it required Paola to go and shout at a printer, because everything is done by someone shouting at someone else. And that's the Italian way. And so all these sorts of things. And then there was Paola's artwork, which has also been really pivotal on what we did, because some things changed because what was physically possible. She drew the dragons on the bottom of the vault, and things like that started to come to life. And then when we actually built the thing, we saw it. It was something that we ourselves had created, and it was quite important. And then there was the usual running around thing when we had, because Italy isn't like States, or I imagine Canada, we didn't have venues. We had to meet here. So that meant everything had to be shoved to one side to get all these people in. And the house becomes a temple, and the temple becomes something that's run by Paola. And it becomes something that, I can do the technical stuff, I can write stuff, but actually making it a living system. I think that's mostly down to Paola. And there's also a lot of inspiration I got as well to take Moa down a particular way, which I probably wouldn't have done if I'd stayed in England, or stayed single. It's just simply that seeing everything here made me place the Golden Dawn in a very pagan way. And ironically enough, because there's shed loads of Catholic shit all around, lots of churches, lots of things like that. But if you feel Rome isn't those things. They've almost like been slapped on top, like scum. And the result is that you feel something that's been around for a few thousand years, and that spiritually you can connect to. And so it's the old gods. Initially we started playing with those and trying to integrate them into the Golden Dawn system. And that what we found was they changed the flavor dramatically of the system. I mean, when you're not so interested in making everything a perfect form of Catholicism, sort of Anglicanism, you get something that's unique. And you can, provided you don't take anything away, the Golden Dawn is extremely flexible. You find people say, oh, I want to shorten it, or I'll cut this bit out, or I'll use this bit. No, it's not, you can't do that. There is actually a very strong framework, which is part of the attraction. And if you take that and then you add in some other things, you get a very interesting mix. And one of the areas which we did take on was to fix a few problems I had with the second order, which was if you do the 5-6, it's the end of it, really. You make your tools, you do all these, study all these papers, you do all these rituals, but the 5-6 is lots of subgrades, but there's no ritual, there's no initiation to take you from that point where you're looking at the material world and looking towards the upper part of the Ciceros. So one of the things we did was write a pure pagan PGM ritual, and we fixed a few of the flaws that the Golden Dawn had that nobody realized it had. Like, for example, in the portal you encounter these paths and they're blocked, which is perfectly acceptable, but they're never unblocked in the entire system. So even if you use the 6-5 and the 7-4 rituals by Falcon, they remain blocked for the rest of your spiritual life, which I thought was absolute shite. So what we did was I wrote a Tham ritual, and then I wrote a 6-5 and a 7-4 ritual that were based on the same formula that the Golden Dawn used, but with heavily paganized. And I think it gave us an inner cup. If you see an inner light shining through a Golden Dawn lantern, it got something different. And this is what is happening now. I mean, it's quiet here. Things are going now in London and Milan with more offshoot groups that are going their own unique ways, and they can do it because of that stuff, that inspiration that we had all those years ago. And I don't think that would have been possible if things had stayed as they are. Right.
Yeah, to jump in and get granular, 2 questions. I'm curious to hear more about the development of Romanesque mythology and inclusion, and how that led to focusing on Greek stuff eventually, which is something we touched on before we went live. But before that, a good example of like these little changes would be, perhaps, tell me if I'm wrong, what you talk about in Mather's Last Secret with the publication of the AO rituals. There's the reduction in the neophyte and the not, of the circumambulation from thrice to once. Would that be a good example of what you're talking about with the?
Yeah, when Mathis did that, I was quite convinced he had an aneurysm. I mean, it's a Masonic trick where you think, well, let's see if we can motor through this ritual and do it really quickly. But the thing is that I'm not sure if it's Mathis or not, but certainly Falcon would have had a heart attack. And the reason is all these things that are going on in a candidate's sphere of sensation, you cannot make those shortcuts. You have to be able to put certain symbols at certain times in that initiation. And that's in the Z documents. It was clearly written by Mathis. So, you know, making one circumambulation is one thing. It means that you haven't risen the candidate up high enough. And this might be one of the reasons why Mathis AO didn't really turn out many great adepts, if they thought shortcuts like that were possible. And yeah, there's a lot of other ones as well. I mean, Mathis's portal, which was the original Golden Dawn portal, was far too short and didn't really cover anything. It was really just open the temple, do a few Masonic handshakes, and sit down and have tea and biscuits. It wasn't a very, very good ritual at all. So yeah, those shortcuts you certainly can't do if you're going to try and expand the Golden Dawn into something new, into different areas. And I'm sure if other people look at those areas within the Golden Dawn and they want to fashion it into something that's really interesting, they will do. The only problem is that the Golden Dawn comes with a hell of a lot of officers, baggage, and work to do. And I mean, the amount of artwork that went into, for example, Paola making all the wands, getting all the colors right, I can't do that. And that was quite an important step. And I think one of the ways we get around that is by chopping some of the stuff out, but some of it we didn't want to. I think when we got into the second order, that was when we started making things that, do we really need to do this? I mean, is it very important that all the officers are holding lotus wands at this point and things like that? It really wasn't, because I think another thing about the Golden Dawn, if you're not careful, is it becomes officer focused rather than candidate focused. So the officers are there for the candidate to help transform the candidate and move the candidate on to something new, and eventually their own independence, magically or otherwise. And a lot of Golden Dawn people forget that. They think that, you know, they want to be at the top tier, wearing the nice colored wands, robes, and the different colored stripy nemesis and things like that. And I don't think it's ever been that.
I can say one thing I think we got right in my experience here in Vancouver was really the adepts who trained me really made it clear to everyone involved that, like, look, we've already gotten to come into these mysteries. You gotta put aside your own ego and stuff to create a good experience for others now, right? Like, if you think this show's about you because you're an officer, yeah, they took none of that. We had a reputation for severity as you know, being a temple of Tahuti. You know, the temple of Isis we had in LA was a bit more loosey-goosey, Piscean, wishy-washy, nice vibes, but we were a bit more, you know, we're all like Virgos and air signs and rigid, but also caring about the experience of the candidate, and that can just make all the difference. Someone here in the comments here, I don't know if you know who Nick Fuller is. The name seems familiar, but that could be just the last name.
Because it's Tony Fuller.
Is that
forgive Tony Fuller?
Yeah, well, I know. That was my innuendo. Maybe Nick's his long lost son. Nick Fuller says the effectiveness and authenticity of a ritual should be judged by its fruits and results.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
I
that's
think anything involving fruit is a good idea.
he says we may be related. I don't know if he's being cheeky or playful. Either way, I'm here for it. Thank you, Nick. Very cool. So yeah, the development of bringing in the Roman gods and then the Greek stuff has really interested me in the work that both of you guys do. I love your artwork, by the way, Paola. Obviously, I've been a big fan of the Shem Grimoire for a long time, and the art you did in there, I really love. I have it next to me at all times, consult it frequently. And your tarot deck is my favorite Golden Dawn tarot deck.
Paola didn't do the tarot deck.
That's Harry.
No, I know. I'm just letting you know while I have the chance that you know, the energy in it, the creativity. I've ranted. I've said enough on my podcast about why I like it so much. I like them all, actually. I didn't used to like them all, but now I actually like them all. They each have their own charm and magic, I find. But yeah, the journey into the Roman gods and the Greek gods really interests me about both of your work. It's something I wanted to ask you both about for many years, especially because, you know, I have this love of the traditional Golden Dawn, but I also have this love of Yeats's Celtic Mysteries, which is very much along those more paganizing lines. And of course, we know that the Hermetica is very syncretistic, very kind of interfaith. It certainly started pagan and then went Christian in the Renaissance with the Italian writers and Christians who Christianized Kabbalah and Hermetica texts. So yeah, what was the journey to bring in those other deities? How did, like, you changed some of the gods in the initiations even, right? Did you do that with things like just the Kabiri? I don't know. You don't have to share things you're not comfortable with, but I'm just very curious to hear what you guys might be willing to share about that experience, because it is so rare to get to have a talk like this with you, people like you.
We didn't change the Kabiri. In fact, we drew them, and Paola drew them so that we could visualize them clearer. But we actually looked at what they were supposed to represent in a traditional Greco-Roman sort of way. What we changed was, firstly, we got rid of the idea that god forms should be projected onto a hall by the Hierophant. And we went for the tantric idea of building a god form within the officer. And those god forms, we ditched the Coptic names, because I just thought that was a bit of Mather's intellectual wank. It didn't really add anything to the concept. I mean, you know, you're looking at Osiris, you know, you're looking at Isis. Why make it something that's unpronounceable that you can't say without spitting? And that is what a problem I had. So let's make it simple, because the god forms stay the same. They look the same. So that's fine. So we made them individualized. After the fourfold breathing, the officers build up the god forms within inside themselves. They're told how to do this. So, and then there's a sort of journey to an inner temple, which is projected onto the space. What I found was, if I was trying to do the whole thing myself as a Hierophant, I'd end up with a chronic headache and need to drink a lot. And I didn't think that was a very sensible way to do a ritual. It seemed to be a bit unnecessary. So if you've got the officers actually taking part, they're actually doing magic themselves. And it's quite interesting for them, because if they're inexperienced, they've got a female god form and they're a bloke, and their voice suddenly changes. That freaks them out a bit, and it's always worthwhile seeing. But yeah, we kept the Egyptian god forms for the officers, the Kabiri and everything else. You know, it's more or less the same. Where we changed it dramatically was when you enter the Sephira, that's under the control of a Greco-Roman goddess or god, and that makes it very different. The atmosphere walking into that from a Kabbalistic one, from what you expect from a Kabbalistic one to a, suddenly in the 2-9 you're talking to Hekate. It's a different atmosphere. Okay.
Yeah. So in the 2-9 you have swapped the cherubim for Greek gods.
Yeah, I don't tend to bother with the cherubim.
Yeah, but no, I'm interested in the Greek gods. I'm interested in the Greek gods.
It's like the elemental stuff. The elemental stuff is important, and that's where the focus on the outer order should be. And then you have the god or goddess who's in charge of that Sephira. That's the one that overlooks it. So you've got Thoth Hermes and Hod, Venus and Netzach. It's a very straightforward thing. And they have invocations to them. So that's also different. So in the middle of it, you will encounter an invocation to some pagan god or goddess, and it has a smack about effect. I don't think you need to change the god forms. I think this is where Yeats was starting to go off. I think he was starting to lose the plot a bit, because he wanted to change all the god forms, change all the speeches, and get it past Mathers. And of course, by the time he got even close to a draft, him and Mathers had fallen out, so it was never going to happen. And I think that's a problem if you're looking for trying to paganize it. I think if in fact, you could almost say as a group dynamic, that is a problem generally, and you have to look at that if you're setting up a group, because a group egregore will kick out certain changes if you push them too far. And the group egregore had no problems about Tham, because it didn't exist, 6-5 and 7-4, because what we were doing was in concert with the Golden Dawn egregore, but it was sufficiently pagan for it to be a second order thing. Where we've got to now is a different case, and it's the more nebulous higher grades and things like that, which are causing a few more problems. But that's where Paola's been taking her researches somewhere else, and I think she'll want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. Before we move on to that, can I ask you a fun question for each of you? Favorite initiation?
Favorite one?
Out of from neophyte, in the outer order. Let's just get from neophyte to portal.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite?
Shit. Do you want to go first? Because I need to think about this. I think it was a portal. I think it was a portal for me. I can remember that one clearly. The thing is, my outer order experience was balancing and things like that. I didn't have any really drastic experiences until Portal and 5-6, and then I had a couple of. 5-6 absolutely wasted me for about 7 years, and I don't think that one really got me. But the 0-0 was one of my favorites. I like doing that, but I'd already experienced, so it was very similar. So I wasn't as shocked as I think some of the candidates we've pushed through have been. We've had people that have been so stunned that they just walked into the pillars. So what's Paola's?
I've seen a few pillar collisions in my day. It's always fun when someone walks in. Oh, the joys of temple life.
Yeah, it's especially difficult when you are the hegemon and the person is very tall and very big and you have to stare at them. very carefully.
We had an officer at our temple that was almost 7 feet tall. A member who was very tall, and he loved being sentinel because he didn't have to pass through the door into the temple. I think he did a few other roles though in his time. Yeah, just the basic dynamics of bodies in space create their own magic and humor and a microcosm of the world.
Well, the thing is, you don't have such a big problem when you have a big, very big hall, a very big temple. The problem is only when you have a tiny little flat, and you have to do all these circumambulations with big, tall candidates. That makes everything very, very complex, very difficult.
The rooms in London and in England they often worked in probably weren't that big, though, were they? No, they wouldn't have been North American sizes, for example.
Nottingham was the Theosophical Hall.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Was it big?
I mean, I wish. Yeah, it's very big. It's
okay.
So it's not something that you get easily here. And first because it's unavailable, and secondly because most of properties belong to the bloody Vatican, so they're not going to rent to you, do they?
Yeah, the Vatican. I mean,
well,
it'd be cool if they did have a Golden Dawn temple somewhere in the Vatican, but we got a ways to go for that.
Yeah.
Golden Dawn Cardinal, that would be funny. I mean, lots of, there's still clergy today in major churches and religions and synagogues who are Golden Dawn practitioners, so they're out there. They're just not probably ever.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Fuller showed how important they were to the Golden Dawn in his book, and yeah, at one point they were, but they're not allowed to now. I mean, if you're an Anglican priest, for example, you're certainly not allowed near an occult group, even if they were responsible for founding or inspiring some of them. And it's a bit of a pity, really, because they're really good on ritual, and they've got some really good gear.
Well, I know Anglican priests who are Golden Dawn adepts who are active as parish priests, and I know other kinds of clergy. I know there's rabbis in leading synagogues who are Golden Dawn practitioners.
At least they get the Hebrew pronunciation right.
That's correct. That's exactly it, and they are very helpful to the rest of us, and hopefully they will one day submit some articles to Golden Dawn Publications to elucidate some of the things they've shared with us more publicly. So, yeah, I mean, the Golden Dawn is an appealing tradition to a very wide range of people, from pagan clergy to Christian to Jewish, and I'm sure there's probably some Islamic. I don't know if there's a Golden Dawn imam out there, but I'm certain there's Golden Dawn Muslims out there. That's a guarantee.
Oh yeah, there are. I mean, I've just recently been talking to one in a group in Istanbul, and they're dead keen, which is really odd because although I can understand it with geomancy, I find it a bit harder to see how, but Istanbul has always been the most liberal of all the Muslim cities, because it's got this huge tradition. So it is possible, but yeah, it's hard for me to imagine how a Muslim would take the strong, there's a lot of crosses. Let me put it that way. There's a lot of crosses in the Golden Dawn. There's a few swastikas too. So there's a couple of swastikas too, which should get up the nose of the Jewish.
I mean, it seems like it would be a minefield for them, but then again, most of us are kind of, you know, heterodox, right? And
I think most
we're
people, when it comes to religion, most people don't ever believe entirely. They accept nebulous. I think fundamentalism has been one of the biggest curses that Christianity has brought into the world. I mean, it came in the 19th century from America, exported to the Arab countries. It's huge. This whole idea of literalism and everything else, it's terrible. And that's where we've got this sort of second witch burning sort of idea from. And but most people, you know, if they sit down and think about it, you know, they're fairly relaxed about religion, and they don't. And most religions are fairly relaxed as well. I mean, Christian nationalism is particularly unpleasant, but what Jesus said was probably livable with.
As a Canadian, you know, I'm a lot more similar to Europeans in our approach to religion, just as how we culturally deal with it in Canada. We don't really have the American evangelicalism and fundamentalism that's so pronounced, to the extent that in America, often like they can't imagine Christianity being other than this sort of four corners, you know, Southern Baptist type of stuff. That's very much the idea a lot of people in America have, and I find that very challenging because it just doesn't apply up north of the border. We don't have that to that extent, where most of our churches are mainstream Protestant churches,
Boring, yeah.
and they're often more conservative, even though they're very rainbow flaggy, than the Catholics, who are even more liberal often in Canada. But then you go south of the border, and all of a sudden it's like snakes and speaking in tongues, and my aunt and uncle with their hands up in the air in Missouri, and you know, the hallelujah. And to quote, you know, Slavoj Žižek, who said, you know, as an atheist, he still said, the Christian legacy is far too precious to be left to the fundamentalist freaks. So we gotta fight to preserve, I think, our equilibrium and our humanity in the face of radicalism and fundamentalist extremism. Of course, like this is on the tips of everyone's tongue today in the world. It's the news every hour. This battle between balance and imbalance. It's an intense time religiously. 25 years ago, our teachers in seminary were like, oh, we're in a post-religious age already. In 20 years, people won't even be thinking about religion very much. They were wrong.
Yeah, but that's because people have just generally got more stupid. Organized religion is basically for those who can't think. And this is the central problem, is that you set up a religion that's quite simple, that people can follow and they feel better. And that's why I don't like occult. I think I prefer occultism, because it requires you to think about, well, what do I think about this, rather than what did some person thousands of years say. And I might listen to what the person thousands of years said, but I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to follow it. And if I mean, in 1,000 years' time, if people are still putting on red socks, I'll be surprised.
I found the hack with the red sock thing, because as a Waldorf school student, we had Eurythmy slippers. So I just got out my acrylic paint and painted my Eurythmy slippers red. And they're great because they're soft. They don't clunk like hard slippers in the temple. They don't clunk, clunk, clunk like the kung fu slippers my teachers would wear. Everyone was jealous of my slippers and like, where do you get them? But it was pre-internet. So I was like, Waldorf class, a Eurythmy class from Eurythmy class. And now you can get them from a website in Germany, and they're pre-painted in different colors. So I highly recommend Eurythmy slippers as a substitute. You can wear socks inside. Wear socks.
Well, the Frater, the women used to wear red stockings, and they used to see them going to, everybody in the whole village used to see them going up the hill into the temple. Everybody knew what was happening, because I don't know why they didn't think, well, we've got to change. But apparently Falcon wanted, he was one point going a bit nuts, I think. because he was heading towards his own ideas about forming a sort of semi-Anglican cult based around Faoirá. And he wanted one way to distinguish the members from other people in the community, and one of them was that they all had to wear red socks. And ironically enough, now same thing applies in New Zealand, because there's a street gang called the Mongrel Mob, and there was a rule that they weren't allowed to wear their patches anymore. The police finally got it through that they weren't allowed to wear their patches out. So they started wearing red socks instead. So the end result is, if you see a person who's wearing red socks, they're probably not a Golden Dawn member.
That's funny. Yeah, the original order I don't think they wore red socks, did they?
No, yeah, they did. I think there's a myth that they didn't, and I think it's just come out of the internet recently. But we've got there's some of the old papers where Mathis is saying it, and if Mathis is saying it, the first one was saying it. What they did have, which I don't think they bought in properly, was masks. It was optional. If you look at the first 0.0, what you could wear and what you couldn't wear. The minimum you could get away with was the sash. You could wear a suit, of course. You couldn't go naked, but you had to wear a sash, and that was it. There was no nemes, no socks, nothing. It was just an ordinary streetwear plus sash. But then they had all these optional extras. One of them was the Osiris nemes, the black and white striped nemes. The other one was an Osiris mask, which I thought was really cool. But it didn't last, and I didn't think it caught on, but they definitely had it. And the socks and the robe was problematic, because everyone thinks, oh, black robe, that's easy. But remember, men and women in the late Victorian period, women in the late Victorian period wearing a robe, because you couldn't change, of course, certainly not in front of men, and you certainly couldn't go around with your bits dangling. So they had to wear, put a robe over the top of their Victorian clothes, so complete with bustle and everything. So
I wonder if it might not have been that strange, because of this. The practice was still common at that time in universities of wearing your black gown and robe.
It was a black gown.
Yeah.
It would have certainly
was
been
very
a black gown,
common, right?
And if you look at SRIA, which a lot of the gear was borrowed from, they all wore these sort of teachers' gowns. So it wasn't a red robe that the Hierophant wore; it was a red gown, and you can see Mathis wearing it in some of the pictures. He's wearing his SRIA gear, but it's exactly what they wore in GD. Anyway, we've got to move on, otherwise
I know
we end up talking about GD all night.
Well, we can do. Pal, any thoughts on the funds? Because the stuff we're talking about, I know, is exactly what a large chunk of our audience wants to hear us just geek out over, especially comparing historical practices with modern ones. Do you have any thoughts on that sort of development of regalia and symbolism, stuff that you like, stuff that just curious?
Well, the thing is, normally I would say no, it's not that important, because if you start shifting towards technicalities, you place form over the essence of what you're doing. So I would say it's not that important to when you have those Facebook posts with perfect temples and perfect tools and regalia and everything else, and you think, that's cool. It's very impressive, but at the same time, does it make a difference? Is it important from a spiritual point of view? So I think that, I mean, going back to the idea which initiation was more, I don't know, impactful, I would say, but it's not even the correct word, because the problem is that the initiation in itself, I would say, the Not was the most important for obvious reasons, because it basically unlocked something. So whatever you have latent within yourself, it needs something that you cannot entirely, and not even entirely, you can't do by yourself, not even halfway through. You can't do it. So it is true that the initiation will not resolve any problems, will not make you or advance you in any spiritual way. What you have to do is to act accordingly afterwards. So you have this experience, you have this opening of a door, and you have something activated within you. If you don't if you don't follow up by yourself, if you don't do the actual work by yourself, the initiation, together with the whole and the pretty tools and everything else, it's worthless. It doesn't do anything. So everything is basically not, obviously it's the skills and the abilities of the officers. This is quite important, because I wouldn't really, if I go back in time, if I think that I could have been through an initiation done by an incompetent person, that is scary. That is really, that makes me think, and I'm really grateful that I was, let's say, guided towards the right direction, because you can get fucked up badly by a bad initiation, a bad initiator. So that's the most important thing. And the fact that you have an impressive temple, it's completely irrelevant to me. To me, what is important, it's the skills, the abilities of the initiator, of the officers, the method used to harmonize the entire working, to make sure that the candidate gets the best possible the best possible initiation. So they get what they need to, they need the proper clicking mechanism, but then they have to work themselves to make that effective. So the initiation is important, is extremely relevant. What is important even more is what the initiate does afterwards, and how the path develops. So I would say the Not was extremely impactful. So I had all sorts of visions and things afterwards. It was very, I couldn't sleep. You know, those physical, even physical sensations that you remember forever. You don't forget those things. And the outer order is a bit different, because it basically you face different aspects that momentarily put you in a difficult and, let's say, slightly unbalanced position, because every time that you enter an element, you automatically are immersed into that element, and you have to be careful how you handle that period of time where you have to go to the next. And so I would say that then the other thing is that was very, very strong was the 5-6, because I couldn't speak. I lost the ability to speak. So that I would say that was pretty impressive. So I wrote that on one of my articles. Actually, the one about Thunder Perfect Mind. That was about this, how, in that particular case, how speech was developed from silence to the various stages according to the Stoics. And I couldn't find an example, because how do you have to try and read this this particular piece, you want to call it poem or whatever you want to call it, and you have to find a way to connect to the words without really understanding the real meaning. You have to go back to the essence of those words. And for some reason, something happens or happened to me in a 5-6, and I lost the ability to speak. And that was very, very close to what I probably want to say in that article. I don't have another way other than this is all very, very experiential, and everything is done by yourself. You don't have really, the connection that I'm trying to build at the moment. It's extremely complex, because going from a very structured system like the Golden Dawn, and then getting closer and closer to Gnostic cosmology, it really complicates the situation a lot, because you get to a point where you enter in conflict with the things that you're doing, because what happens is that you're not sure 100% that the initial structure is the right thing. It's what you're supposed to be doing, and that's the point where I had a real a very difficult moment of crisis, where you have to reconcile this cosmology vision. You let's say that you want to see, or you have the clear, let's say, inner gnosis, where you know that there's something wrong in the system as it is built, as it is constructed. So what you have to do is, and what I try to develop through these articles, is to find the link, the link that connects this structure as it is, but understand it from a new perspective, a new point of view, so that you can overcome the structure itself. Because in the end, whatever is formed, whatever is structured, eventually will just block you, will just limit you. You're just limited within a certain, certain boundaries, all right? So you can study all the systems that in the world, you are still studying a system that responds to different rules. And the rules, as I mentioned, obviously, for example, astrology, they actually confine you. They push you into a specific direction. So if you, for example, look at your natal chart, people are bound to their natal imprint. So that's the picture of the moment where you were born, and you are bound. You have an imprint. You have something that it's like, blood, genetics, let's say. So what happens is that, what do I do? What happens if I want to free myself from this imprint, from this boundary, let's say? And that's very, very difficult, because we don't have much about, the reality is that we don't have anything. We don't have anything in comparison to what probably was available, and it was lost. So basically, other than the Nag Hammadi and the books of you and the Pistis Sophia, and that's already huge for us. I mean, going through all these texts is difficult, is hard, and to be honest, there is a limited amount of academic material, especially for the books of you and Pistis Sophia. So the thing is, I'm still I still think that it's extremely important to go through a complete system, an hermetic system, like the GD. But I mean, I say GD because for me, it had it's the most complete in my view, as I experienced it. Unfortunately, I got to the point where I got stuck. So the system itself and the techniques are not enough. And you get to a point where you have to develop beyond these systems. And this is what I've been trying to do. But again, it's an ongoing process. It's a lifetime process. It's not something that, you can just one day wake up and you have to construct a practice that merges different aspects of different traditions. And if we think about the historical context of Gnostic material, we see that we have a lot of a mix of Neoplatonic, Stoic, Pythagorean. I mean, we have a lot of these aspects that are Egyptian, Greco-Egyptian tradition. So everything is there. We have a system embedded in the Gnostic texts. It's not very well. We don't have a complete system within those texts. We don't have instructions within those texts. So we have to reconstruct it ourselves. We have to grab whatever we have and try to piece everything together to understand how to interpret and how to not only see it from, historical. Yes, of course, it's very interesting from an academic point of view and everything, but I want something practical. I'm a very practical person, so I want to try something that does something. I don't want to just talk about it, and to me, it's not just about it's very interesting, all these academic texts, but I need to transmute all this into a usable system that leads you towards something, because at some point everyone will reach a point where you can't go further. and you have to find a way to overcome that difficult moment. And in my specific case, I'm doing this. So I'm focusing a bit more on that aspect because I want to make it practical. And I think it would be, I'm not sure if it will be useful to anyone. If it will be useful to anyone, I'll be happy to help, but not necessarily. I just feel that it's something that I have to do. So that's how it started with the Substack thing.
The Thunder Perfect Mind is one of my favorite articles I've read on the Substack, and I've been on the Substack since it started. And I hope everyone listening gets on the Substack, because it's a real treat to have you guys doing that. And I know you took some flack for doing it from the occult community, but I'm glad you didn't listen to those people at all, because, you know.
I think the thing was, what we tried to do was, I wanted to set up a proper, because I'm a long-time journalist, I wanted to see what would happen if we took actual information, making it into features on real subjects of whatever we wanted to write, obviously, but divided into two, with the practical stuff, really practical stuff, which is part of, you have to be a paid subscriber to get, but it's still pretty valuable stuff. And then there's the free stuff, which is more dealing with issues, dealing with people, history, stuff that is accurate. Now, one of the things I think is funny is, it's been really good, is we've been able to say things that, perhaps people don't want to hear, like, Bardin isn't a god, that sort of thing. And it has annoyed a few people, but at the same time, there's the thing in the occult community where people who have been doing this stuff for years have to shut up. They're not allowed to say, well, actually, that's a load of rubbish. You're not allowed to say that. And I think that sort of approach is wrong. Whereas what we've done is, because the Substack system is quite good, we've been able to make a pretty professional looking thing with some really hard, difficult articles. I mean, Paola's stuff on Gnosticism is, there's not much you'll find on the internet scanning it. And we know, because we had to look outside academic papers, and very few of those. And so I can write about the histories and the Golden Dawn stuff and things like that. And we've got people we know writing about areas that they're suitably qualified in. And I want to get some more of that later, because that's some of the experience we got from doing the Hermetic tablet all those years ago, is how to work with large groups to make a proper magazine. But it's a magazine that people want to read and study, rather than just what I did in my holidays type articles. And I'm really proud of the result. We've produced 6 articles a week, and the minimum size of those articles is 1,700 words. So if you buy the paid content, which is $8 a month, you're left with the equivalent of buying 2 books every 6 weeks. So it's one book every 6 weeks. So it's quite good value, and certainly it's not the sort of material that we had access to when I was initially training. And so we can cover a wide range of ground and subjects. Sometimes we just get pissed off and we write something, and it's fun. But other times there's a serious edge to what we're trying to do, and it's mostly trying to get to people thinking, because most people don't want to read books anymore, or I mean, to give you an example, there's a difficulty. My generation is all book orientated. Paola's generation is probably more video orientated. I can't sit and watch it. I can't sit and listen to a video. I tend to read very fast, so I can't sit and watch a video because I get bored or I start thinking of doing something else. But a book I can read. Whereas Substack is halfway between the two. You know, it's halfway between video, halfway between book. And if provided we don't get it short like a blog or something, or informal like a blog, then the Substack's got a lot of value for those who read it. And we have been getting some quite good results. Some people don't like the fact that I don't really care if something's secret anymore. And a couple of the complaints saying, why are you saying this? Is it sort of locked up within whatever order they're complaining about? And I say, well, it's public knowledge anyway. And all I'm doing is reviewing it and looking at it. So yeah, there's stuff there that people should read, even if they don't think they want to at the moment. And there's stuff there that I know that there's stuff a bit like my Hierophant guide. It's material which people should really read now before they get their hands burnt. And things that I wish people had told me when I was younger, like, you know, some occult teachers, our tossers, would be a really useful piece of advice. Because at the time I didn't believe they were, but now if I go back and look at some of my occult teachers, I realize they were tossers, and that's fair enough. But at the same time, I thought they were wonderful. So yeah, there's been that going on, and the Substack is growing. We're coming up to our 1,000th subscriber. We're not getting as many paid ones. Yeah, but we're not getting enough paid ones we like. And it's so much effort. I mean, to put in, I can write quite fast, and even I'm challenged. But if the amount of effort we're putting into it, it really does need a lot more paid subscribers for us to be able to justify what we're doing. So we're trying to get as much as we can done and established so that people get used to it. I mean, there's an ability for them to ask for stuff that they want, see and read, and I'm quite happy to do that. I've done that. I've been writing a series, which honestly I don't want to keep writing, about the seals on the Key of Solomon, but that's because people want it. I might turn that into a book once I've finished, but to take the Keys of Solomon, for example, pull it to bits, look at how you'd use them magically, which most people don't do. What they usually do is they copy the Key of Solomon from Mathers and wave them around in a ritual. And I'm looking at ways to make it a bit more useful. And today, I mean, next week we're doing a bit more on sort of basic practical magic for beginners as well. So that's also
it's a wonderful mix. It really it started off Golden Dawn heavy, which I loved, and actually for a little while there I was noticing that the articles that were coming out were like the same topic as the class I had just taught, and I was like, what is happening here? Because then I would just go recommend them to my students and friends and be like, you got to check this out, it's on Anubis, and they'd be like, I thought you just did a class on Anubis. It's like, yep, and here's some great stuff that complements it perfectly. Everyone should be on your paid Substack. It's a bargain, in my opinion. Also, I think people have a tendency to think, oh, well, I can get to it one day. But people, life is short and time is precious, and things happen for periods of time. And my pitch to the audience would be like, this is your chance to be a part of a special happening in a special space at a special time, and you get to be a part of that now, and you can even influence it and ask for things and maybe even submit things. It sounds like is a possibility. So let's do it, people. Let's get on board with this, because these things don't last forever. Nothing lasts forever except well, I don't even know what. That's the mystery, isn't it? So I hope join on the Substack. And it's a manageable amount of material to get through in a month. It's not overwhelming, but it's also certainly not let's just say it's a very good deal. It's you got plenty to sink your teeth into. Preparing for talking with you guys, I haven't read every single one, but I've read almost all of them. And I do have even some prepared questions for you guys that I wrote down in case we ran out of spontaneous things to talk about. Shall I jump to a question? I have a one for you. You want to jump to a fancy question?
Sure.
About this stuff. Here's one. So Paola, you wrote an article on spiritual awakening that I really liked. And so here's one thing. I have a couple questions. You present the seed, the idea of the seed, as something that cannot be produced by effort, teaching, or ritual, and only recognized. How do you balance that idea with the article? The article also insists that study and diagnosis and ritual still matter. So the seed that can only be recognized, balanced with
the problem,
ritual and diagnosis.
The problem with that specific article, and that one analyzes specific Valentinian text, which is the tripartite tractate, which has an explanation of the cosmology that already differs a bit from other texts, for example, from the Apocryphon of John. And that's the annoying thing that I noticed about these texts, that you don't have a unified system. You don't have a unified view. Not only you don't have a system, but you don't have a unified view about cosmology. So we have the difference between the Sethian and the Valentinians, obviously, which is the main issue that I'm tackling at the moment. And I'm going through I'm going through the Nag Hammadi text, but not just all of them, but I'm trying to tackle specific texts that are, let's say, useful for my purpose. So I'm trying to follow a certain, let's say, a certain fil rouge, or I don't know how you want to call it. And the problem is that in that text, we have a clear distinction between human beings. So the problem is that we have the Halic, the psychic, and the pneumatic. Pneuma comes from means spirit, and it gives a real distinction that it's not some kind of moral accusation, but it's to do with an embedded an ontological state. So you can't really decide who you are and what's inside of you. So we have 3 levels where one type of humanity is completely immersed into the material realm, and they have no interest, and I think that it's clearly visible, in practical terms. You can actually say that there are people that are not interested in the spiritual aspect of life, let's say. So they're completely immersed in that material aspect. The psychic is some kind of middle way between the two, where they have a possibility of development, but it's not specified if they, surely they are not automatically upgraded, let's say. The pneumatic seems the one that it seems that has some kind of automatic liberation or redemption. What happens is that in the case of the pneumatic, you have a final redemption that it's embedded within you. So the difference is that it does look like a differentiation that cannot be overcome. Let's say we are not all the same. So basically, according to this view, obviously, this is the view of the Valentinians that they explained in the text. Not necessarily it depends on what your experience is. I think that it's not necessarily like that, but if you look around you, you could actually say something like that. It's not exactly that wrong. And it might feel a bit, discouraging. But that is something that I'm not saying that we don't have evidence that this is a universal law, because obviously if you follow different schools, different esoteric schools and everything, you have a different view of your spirit. Eventually, for example, there is a difference between the Valentinians and the Sethian, because the Valentinians don't see the material world in such a negative, dualistic way. Although we still have the creator of the material world as a corrupted entity. So we don't have the material world created from the one thing, but we have a demiurge. We have something that comes from a split, something that comes from a division, something that comes from a deviation. And that deviation is what gives rise to corruption, let's say, if you want to put it that way. So the problem is that according to that text, yes, there are 3 types of humanity. And not everyone has the ability and the possibility to awaken. And it's really up to the person that goes through the system, that goes through these texts, to get in touch with their inner perception of what reality is and what the real world is. And I cannot give a scientific evidence of such a statement, but it's something that you have to work out by yourself. I would say that as I see the world as it is now, I would pretty much agree with that conclusion, because there are different stages, and I can see that there are people that they want to feel elevated, they want to feel spiritual, but they're not. And it's something that you can see from basic behavior. So if you see people that are or they sell themselves as particularly spiritual, but they still behave in a way that it's very, very much connected with the ego or the lower self, whatever you want to call it, you can understand better this concept that the text wants to communicate. So I don't think it has to be seen as some kind of discrimination, but it's like talking about like genetics, like something that either way you you come with it or you don't. And that's the what you understand from the text. I mean, the text it's pretty specific about that, but not all the Gnostic texts say the same thing, and not all they don't present the same cosmology. So in one text we have a certain specific way the universe is created, through the Sophia and the movement outside the Pleroma. In the other tripartite tractate is more about the movement of the Logos. So as you can see, these texts are different, and you have to go through them by yourself and see what you can get out of them. And that's the point of Gnosis. You have to connect with the knowledge within yourself. You have to develop a different, like Litva said in one of his lectures, that Gnosis is a different mode of knowing. So you have to find it by yourself. You cannot force it, and nobody can teach it really to you. You have to find it within yourself. And that's the most difficult part, because all these systems follow the rules and follow techniques, and everything can be, let's say, taught and practiced, which is perfectly fine. I have no problem with that, but at some point you have to go beyond those systems, and you have to understand what if you can do it, if you can go beyond those systems, because not necessarily for what I have seen up until now from these texts, there is a minority. There's a very small number of there's a small number of people that can actually do it. And if the more I carry on and analyze each single text, and you can see this repeated in different ways, but still the same thing as, for example, in a Gospel of Thomas, and it says more or less the same thing. You have this possibility, or the Gospel of Philip. Not necessarily you will be able to do it. In the Gospel of Philip, there is a way. For example, the difference in the Gospel of Philip is that it doesn't actually tell you that you can't free yourself from these powers, i.e. the archons, right? But at the same time, it's implied that not many will be able to, and some of them, they will even revert to an initial condition. So let's say that you have a moment of realization and you manage to disconnect yourself from the system, so from the powers. What happens is that you can go back to being bound. It doesn't mean you're freed because you reached a moment of awareness. And it really, it gave me the chills, it feels scary, because the system itself, if you think about that, it's programmed to pull you back into what is repetition, what is a pattern, what is habit. And that's the most difficult part of the process, because the process is not hindered in a physical way, like you have a physical an opposition. You have something more subtle, and that it's really difficult to overcome, which is your own thinking patterns, for example, your own habits, your ego-driven behavior. All these things basically pull you back to a state of unawareness. And that's the difficult part, because we are immersed in matter, and that the problem is that you cannot think in terms of being completely detached to reach the absolute highest level of awareness or enlightenment, which is another word that is a bit misused, while being immersed in matter. You still in your body. You still have to eat. You still have to work. You still have to do everything like anyone else. So the point is to find a way to transcend matter while you're still alive. And I know this sounds absurd, but unfortunately, according to the text, it's what you have to do. Because if you don't do it, you're fucked, apparently. So, I was, when Justin Sledge said something about, I don't remember if it was about the Aeons when in a Books of View. Oh yeah, okay, because there were 60 treasuries of light that you have to overcome, and unfortunately, text stops at 56 or something, and say good luck with that. so that's all we have. So that's true. I mean, we are basically a bit lost with just few fragments. And we have to rebuild what we can with whatever we have, and the rest is basically through inner gnosis. I don't think there is another way.
And you specifically don't treat that gnosis as universalized in that article in particular. Let me just quickly check my notes.
Yeah, in the article, it's about that specific subdivision, that it must be acknowledged at least. But in other texts, that part is not particularly emphasized. So you cannot really say that that's a universally accepted rule. I cannot tell you because I don't have evidence. I don't have a way to measure the inner spark of a person. I can tell you from behavior and from, there are other ways to know if a person is more or less spiritually driven. And sometimes, and actually most of the time, most people fake it because feeling or looking particularly spiritual fulfills a specific type of ego, which is the spiritual ego. And that looks superior to ordinary ego that just says, oh, I'm better than you because I have a better job, or I have more money, or things like that. The spiritual ego, it goes beyond that, because I find it even worse, because it's even more deviating, because you really want to feel superior to other people, but the truth is you just do it based on your lower responses and patterns. And if you look around you, I'm pretty sure that a lot of us can identify tons of people like that. So if you ask me personally, I would say yes, probably that subdivision is true to how I see things. But other people might say no, and other texts in the Gnostic library might say that simply is not universally recognized. So it's not necessarily applicable to everyone. So I think that's something that is just personal point of view, like anything else. Really, it's your personal view on how the texts work, how what's the message, and how you interpret the message. So that's really individually recognized by each one of us in a different way. So that's it.
I'm so glad I asked you about this. Your thoughts on this are so interesting, and I really love how much you also are a fan of Dr. Litwa. Of course, he's friend of the show, friend of mine, I'm honored to say now. And we'll have to get you all talking at some point, because he's done such exciting work in the field of Sethianism, Valentinian Gnosticism, and the Hermetica all together. And that's rare to find, I think, in a scholar who also has an understanding of mainstream Christian and biblical studies as well. And again, he's not religious. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's,
I know. He said he's not a practitioner. He's not a practitioner.
I don't want to call him an atheist. He's spoken for himself. But I have another question about you on this exact topic before we move on. But also, it's very early in the morning here, and I really have to quickly go pee. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to play a quick promotional video for our mutual friend, Dr. David Litwa, and we'll be right back after these very brief messages. So if you have to run to the bathroom, you have time to do that now. And I think this should play. Hopefully it will play. Where is it? Yes. The Hermetic Bible has finally arrived. After publishing Hermetica 2 for Cambridge Press, Dr. M. David Litwa, Ph.D., published Post-Human Transformation in Ancient Mediterranean Thought, Desiring Divinity, and 1 or 2 other dozen major works. From early Christian studies to Gnosticism and the Hermetica. Dr. Litwa also teaches and translates Ancient Greek and Coptic. If you want to study more with him, join his Gnosis Academy, which meets monthly, and also you get to enjoy and participate in his many online recorded courses, getting a new one each month that you are a member. As a member myself, I can tell you these are well worth your while, and you get to explore and study with other like-minded people, scholars and teachers themselves in many cases. Join the Gnosis Academy and get access to all of Dr. Litwa's work today, including an introductory course on the Hermetica, which follows the translation of the Stobaean fragments in Hermetica 2. But finally, the great announcement is here. The Hermetic Bible has arrived, and Dr. Litwa has retranslated the Hermetic fragments and the Nag Hammadi Coptic into a new Hermetica 1, ordered as a path of initiation, and now released in the definitive edition from Fount Unlimited, an offshoot of Anathema Publishing in Canada, with beautiful artwork by Jose Gabriel Alegria Sabogal. Explore Hermetica and the Way of Hermes by pre-ordering the limited edition hardcover today, which ships out this spring. The unlimited paperback will also be available, as well as the deluxe version, which is already sold out. Explore the Way of Hermes with Dr. M. David Litwa, and stay tuned for more exciting announcements from Fount Unlimited, Anathema Publishing, and the Gnosis Academy. All right, we're back. Those things are useful when you need a little bathroom break or to get a glass of water. And I'll be sure and play a promo video for Lord Manticore next time Dr. Litwa's on the show. And then we can lead to a great crossover episode and get all 4 of us together and talk about Hermetica and Gnosticism. That would be really fun to do end of summer or early autumn, once his book is out, once you have a copy in your hands.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, let's do that. The last question on this thing, and you sort of look at Hermetic and theurgical systems not as ladders of ascent, but as a way of understanding or diagnosing the flawed cosmos. So the question is, what changed for you intellectually or practically that made that interpretation feel necessary? Not ascent, but healing or tikkun. It's kind of the tikkun idea rather than, systematic progression up levels of holiness. And this could be a question for either of you, of course, honestly. Yeah, I'd love to hear what both of you think on that.
Well, the thing is, if you look at systems like the GD, it does look like progression. It does look like you are elevating yourself from the basic point and then into something higher. Let's say, no, you get, after all, if you look at the tree of life, you get to the 5-6 Tiferet, but the problem is that at some point I just there was something that it didn't feel right, and I swear I cannot explain to you what it was, because there's no intellectual explanation that can tell you what happens, because it happens inside of you, and it's something that just clicks. And at some point I feel, okay, I'm doing all these various stages, and I'm doing all these steps, and I'm doing all these procedures and everything else, and I still feel stuck in a way that is difficult to explain, obviously, because that's very, very personal. And that was the point that I realized that no, there's something that it doesn't add up. And at that point, I can't even tell you, but just I was flooded with a certain type of information that I didn't even search by myself. So it just fell on my lap. And I'm very, very respectful of these kind of events, because again, the story about me being led towards Nottingham and not another temple, for me, it's the same principle. So the same principle, or you want to say Jungian synchronicities, if you want to put it that way, you can. I mean, yes, of course, it could be that. Obviously, you can say it's your higher self guiding you, or your higher genius, or again, that's something that pushes you in a certain direction. And that doesn't mean that you will be necessarily able to complete the cycle within this lifetime, because simply most people won't be able to reach to the point where they make major breakthrough. But I felt I was lucky enough to get to the point where I realized something. And normally these things are always brought forward by internal crisis. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily something that happens out of nowhere. It happens normally because of some event or some personal or pressure, a specific kind of pressure. And that's something that leads you towards a religion. And doesn't mean that everyone will be able to get there, not that everyone will be able to realize that. It's just your path. It depends at what point of your spiritual development you are, and that's not something. Again, I had a friend that a while back went apeshit because I said that we were at 2 different points in our spiritual paths, and he went absolutely apeshit. Like, how dare you say something like that? I said, well, nothing is implied. I just said everyone automatically is at a different point. We are not exactly, I'm not at the same point as Nick. I'm not at the same point as you or anyone else for the matter. It's just a state of fact. It's the way it is. We are not all at the same point of our spiritual development. So what happens is that if you get to the point where you're not exactly comfortable, despite the fact that you're following certain rules, that you follow a certain, let's say, you can call it ladder in a way, because you want to develop, you want to move forward, let's say. So what happens is that you don't feel you're going anywhere really, and that's the point where maybe you ask yourself what if there's something wrong with you initially. So you ask yourself, if I don't know, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing this practice wrong? Am I misunderstanding the teachings? Am I ignored by the universe or something like that? There are tons of reasons. I mean, you can even get pissed off at the universe. What the fuck? I mean, and then you get to the point where, if you're lucky enough, you get a hunch, and based on that hunch, you might be able to move on to something. It could be different, but I wouldn't say that I'm moving on to something different. I'm trying to develop what we have already. So we have a system. The system is not, it is flawed in a way, but it is flawed intrinsically, because the fact that it develops and it is manifest in the material world made it intrinsically flawed. Not in a bad sense, but just as in a way of judging the demiurge. Okay, in a Sethian text, you can see the demiurge as this nasty, evil creator. What demiurge means really craftsman. While in a more Valentinian, it's more of ignorant. I mean, Sakla is fool, Samael is blind. So it's not necessarily evil in a sense of dualistic, in a dualistic point of view, but it is distorted, it is limited, and it is limited because it has to be limited, because you wouldn't have manifestation if you didn't have a limited world, if you didn't have boundaries, if you didn't have chains. Now, if these chains rule your entire world, that's a problem. And that is the problem that keeps you blocked in a certain condition, or in a human condition. If we want to see the archons as purely evil spirits, I wouldn't exactly see it like that. I would say it as forces that they are driven by lower aspects of the universe. So they are some kind of necessary aspect for manifestation. So, but you get stuck, you get chained, you know. So in that way, I would say that it's not ideal spiritually, because what you have to do is to find a way to transcend and eventually reunite what we call the one thing, or the monad, or whatever you want to call it. So all this practice, it is necessary, or at least for example, I wrote about Proclus and how these associations work in a material world, and how the higher realm and the lower realm can be some kind aligned, you know, by aligning, by following those rules. For example, the associations of certain herbs, objects, is how you do theurgy. So by doing that, you align with a different reality. And that is what allows you, that is the tool that allows you to understand how the lower world functions. And eventually, through those tools, you should be able to transcend it. But that's not something that comes automatically just because you do theurgy, just because you practice magic. First, because there are different levels of magic, but I don't think that you would be able to overcome the human conditions by simply mystical experiences or practice. I think that it's some kind of you have to merge the techniques to the point that something really changes, and it's different from what I've been doing up until now. So it will be practical, but it will be different, and it will feel different. It feels physically different, to the point that I really had serious issues in doing rituals few months ago, and then I sort of adjusted. That's an adjustment that when you are into a transition point, you are leaving a system to enter another system. And when you are in that transition point, you are neither, and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you feel lost. And that's a problem, but again, is transitional. So it's fortunately is not permanent. Eventually, you overcome and you find your direction. So
one of our audience says, I always say if someone is starting to study esoteric knowledge, know thyself, because if you are not true to the self, it's a dangerous pass. Thanks, Invisible Scientist, for the comment. Yeah, people, we'll go through all the comments before we wrap up at the end. You can super chat to interrupt us, of course. But yeah, that's so interesting to hear about. Like, you know, even as an adept, you go through these, you're still on your journey. You're never really at the same place as someone else, because you're your own unique being, of course. But even then, this idea of completion or attainment is a sort of a trap, right? Because we keep going through new. Beware the person who thinks they've made the summit, right?
One of the things that I find really annoying is those people who think they've crossed the abyss. It's just something like, or they tell you, look, this is my goal, is to cross the abyss. And I thought, well, just cut your wrists. It's a lot quicker.
Well,
when you look at these sort of goals and targets, and theurgy is a very important thing. You're not the idea of a ladder, Jacob's ladder going up to heaven, which is one of the first things that after one of my first problems with Kabbalah was. The idea that you somehow ascend anywhere seems to me a hiding to nowhere, because if the whole thing about the monad is that you can't define it. It cannot be defined. It can only be defined by what it isn't. And when you look at these things, there's nothing to ascend to because it's all there already. So you're not going from point A to point B upwards or downwards or sideways. It's internal. It's something that you're realizing, your own divine nature. And that divine nature is the spark. How I define the spark, me and Paola disagree on this, but how I define the one thing is that everything takes place within this one thing, which is both infinite and unknowable. So that tells you how far you've got to crow. Crossing the abyss is jumping from a state where you know something about to something that it's completely unknown. So to cross to, I mean, from Hesed to Bina, you're going from a state where you've got a personality, you've got a life, you've got a universe that behaves in the right sort of way, that has gravity and all these other things which you know and are familiar with, going to a point where everything's infinite. It's a bit contained, but it's still infinite. And I think that's what most people don't really get. So literally the fastest way to understand that is to have a near-death experience, because then at least you've got half the point. And it's only a little bit away, but it's close to understanding how much of infinity you have to understand. And infinity is not something that people understand very well.
So I should head over there to Rome with a defibrillator and we'll go full flatliners together.
After you.
I had a friend recently.
That was a movie. That was a movie.
That's a movie. Now that's any of you young bucks out there hasn't seen Flatliners, and we mean the original.
Young.
Anyone who hasn't seen it, go watch it. The new one's probably okay, but nowhere near as the first one's classic. It's actually one of the only movies I ever watched with. Well, we don't need to get into that. It's one of the only movies I ever watched with Raphael and Robert. Anyway, yeah. I had a friend.
Was she old enough to see it?
Ha 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 ha. Okay, enough. Of course, I was the teenager. No, not really. We were all adults. I recently talked to a friend who did his crossing of the abyss. But he was asking me about questions about that in the Golden Dawn, and what I said to him was we're talking about the metaphysics of all of this. The map is not the territory, right? So the structures and symbols and maps we use are not, they help us, but they're not they're what gets us there, and where there is, we don't really ever know in this life. But what I said to him was like, look, in Thelema, you actually have a ritual where you do this thing and then you do another thing and then you do another thing and then it's done. So you have a crossing of the abyss ritual, but in the Golden Dawn, it's not like that. And the problem that Crowley's ritual of crossing the abyss has caused for the rest of us is people thinking that it's this ontological process that everyone needs to go through, and that if it doesn't exist in your tradition, you're somehow missing the grand finale or the cherry on the
toad. Didn't he crucify a toad to get that grade to cross the abyss?
I don't know what Crowley did for that. Probably I wouldn't be. I mean, Crowley did a lot of things, right? But the point is, like, we don't even have that. That's not a formal structure we have in the Golden Dawn.
No, it's not practical.
You could equivocate it to other experiences, which is, I've tried to do, but again, it's just not a thing really in the.
Well, even
the
7-4. I spoke to Percy Wilkinson, who is a 6-5 in Fori Ra, and he said, I said, so why didn't you ever do your 7-4? Because he was in Fori Ra from the 50s. And he said, well, 7-4 is all mystical stuff, and I never wanted to be a mystic. I'm happy to be a magician. And he's got a sort of point. The 7-4 is all about mysticism, and it's about preparing for the state of trying to cross the abyss, but it's not literal. And I think this is one of the problems where people like a nice tidy bow and a nice thing that says, if I've gone up all these other grades and I've reached this point, but have you really? And you know, between 6-5, you're supposed to be doing this sort of, you're a greater magus, you're supposed to be doing all these big things, but you're not. If you're not doing them, if you're still cursing somebody's girlfriend, or you're still trying to do magic to win the lottery, you're not being a greater adept, however much you've got the grade. So the 7-4 is the same issue. You're supposed to be preparing yourself to really see divinity in the life you're in, and then from there lose your personality, lose self, and merge yourself into the divine absolute, the divine mother, which is a very Gnostic idea. We're talking a very high, it's not a literal abyss, it's not a chasm in the way that the Greeks meant it either. It's absorption into creation itself. And I think that's something that they totally miss. And I don't blame it, because it's you believe that if you get a certain grade, you know, you get a dog treat, and it doesn't work like that. Okay, I'm getting questions coming.
The dog treat idea is amazing.
Yeah. 7-4, have a biscuit.
Have a biscuit. Have a bicky. It's just a bicky.
Yeah, who's been a good 7-4 then?
I love that idea. I love that the Frater RC adepts seem to have this idea that, well, 5-6 is the grade, right? We certainly treat it as such in our order, which I like, the order I trained in, of course. Like once you're in 5-6, like everyone, we didn't even really do the higher grades beyond that. It wasn't of interest. I think that was unfortunate, but I also like the democratization of 5-6, where once you were in 5-6, you were equal with everyone. Everyone was basically equal. Obviously, there was different roles and duties and stations and stuff.
Some are more equal than others.
Right, exactly. You know. I mean, those are duties. I mean, I you know, the adepts above me who trained me all left one after another for you know, due to you know who, he who shall not be named. And so I was left in charge, and I had, you know, over 100-person temple, and then all of Canada. That was me, complete autocratic control. And why people think I'm insane for letting it go, but I think it was.
I'd say you'd have gone insane
decision.
if you kept it.
Yes. I was 23. I was 23.
Oh, for fuck's sake! What the hell is a 23-year-old doing in charge of it?
I was busy finishing my Masters of Divinity at UBC, and then I got into my PhD with Nicholas Goodrick Clark. I had things to do, and the adepts under me were just causing problems, even though I trained them. And so, you know, when my protege forged my signature on the incorporation and bank account documents, I just washed my hands of it and moved on with my life and let them.
Well, you will like my coming book. You like my cunning book then, because not the one that's coming out this week, which is the Geomancy book, but you like the one.
Let's talk about books now.
Okay, let's talk about books. Well, the first one that's coming is out now,
books, baby,
is this one, which is huge. It's basically well, I can't show you the original. I took my original Stars and Stone, which was a much smaller book, and it was the complete introduction to geomancy, looking at the historical texts, but above all making it practical so you could do actual readings. And that was out. This has been out for about 3 years, and then I had another stab at it, and I incorporated Stars and Stones into it, and then expanded it a lot, so that it covers all the things that I'd learned about geomancy in the last 3 years. And I mean, I did do tarot. I mean, obviously I've got a tarot deck, and that was my main method of divination. But then I started to use this and it started to make sense. Previously, I think I was a bit stuck before trying to follow modern geomancers, and I don't think that they quite got it right. I think there's something interesting about geomancy, which is both flexible but also a lot more focused. Tarot has this habit, particularly if you've got certain type of tarot readers, where they'll fling down a tarot card, look at it, the picture, and tell you what the picture means. And there's no symbolism, there's nothing to hold it together. So they end up giving you an entire reading based on what they think. Whereas geomancy is a lot harder to do that. It works a bit like horary astrology. Anyway, so that book comes out this week. It was actually out now. I posted it up today. And it's the largest book that's been written on geomancy since 17th century. Most of the books you find on geomancy are quite small because they haven't gone into much depth. But this one goes into all the astrology. It looks at the Arabic meanings of the words, which, because it's originally an Arabic form of divination. So I looked at the Arabic words that the Westerners read first and tried to translate, and made a real hash of it. And so some of these figures have slightly different meanings from what most people think they mean. So Rubus, for example, was always considered a terrible figure to have. But if you look at the Arabic meaning of it, it actually is closer to libido. It's more to do with love. It's more to do with intense emotion, but it's not necessarily violence. When Agrippa looked at geomancy, he assigned the different figures to different astrology. So, for example, with Rubus, he assigned Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio. Whereas if you look at some of the other geomancers of the day, like Christopher Catton, we're still talking 15th century, he said it was Mars and Gemini, which is more talky and less stabby. So you get a different concept of it from those sorts of things. So I've been playing with this thing now for 3 or 4 years, and I think I finally got to the point with it that I'm happy. And this is all I've got. I put everything I could think of in there, and so it's done. The only thing I haven't done so far with geomancy is to look at the magic of geomancy. I mentioned that Mathis, in the Golden Dawn, you are initiated into Mars geomantic talisman as part of the initiation. And it's not clear why Mathis just threw it in there, but it is definitely there, and it's been not something anybody's particularly noticed before. But there is a lot of scope for more development and research work on that. And I have worked out done some experiments with it to really crack into that. I mean, you've seen the ones where you draw the talismans, use like in the Key of Solomon, where they take the dots that the geomantic figures are made from and draw lines or circles to connect them all to make sigils for magical purposes. And I have only just done the barest amount of work on that, but that's going to be a while away yet. And the second book,
that practice, I want to say, is what got me back into geomancy, along with like reading Franz Hartmann's stuff got me into it again. I got Stephen Skinner's book, and now I'm excited to get the new edition of your book and further my continued journey. I love like what Dr. Al Cummins did with the Enochian prayers he wrote for the geomantic spirits and symbols. That was a nice bringing a little Enochian element, like always, you know, makes us Golden Dawn types happy to see a little bit here and there.
I did an ancient Greek. Do an original Homeric hymn. That'll sort it out.
Well, I also just got finally the Orphic hymns by Ronnie Pontiac and Tamara Lucid, and this is my favorite version I've ever seen of the Orphic hymns. I think it's just absolutely beautiful for anyone who wants a really cool, awesome edition. I think it's the best version out there to date.
I've been, the Orphic hymns are really, really quite useful. As ways of, and the Homeric hymns as well. I mean, they've also got the same connect. Homer is as a form of magic is really important in the pagan tradition. And if you think about the classics, the Odyssey and the Iliad and things like that, all these things were seen as channeled from the gods. So they were treated exactly the same way by the pagans as the Bible was. So if you look at broken down verse by verse, because they've got they're in the Bible, like Bible verses, they've got very similar structure. They're used magically. They're used, we've got evidence of them being used in PGM. And so you can use that too. And Homer's quite handy, because if you wanted to, say, mention, there is, say, for example, you wanted to build yourself an Enochian tablet using Homeric Greek. There are 6 verses you can find within Homer to describe the different aspects of the elements. And then you've got your tablet. You just replace all the stuff, and you've got different daemons and everything else all there. But it's an area to be mined. And I think this is one of the things that most people haven't got the time to, or haven't really thought about it yet. But you have to get sort of a bit obsessive before you start noticing these things.
I think you just got Boda's attention with that comment.
I didn't see that.
No, you know, I just like, because Boda took out the Enochian from Enochian.
Boda. Yeah, but Boda's Enochian is awful. I mean,
yeah. So you talking about switching it out with Greek probably just perked up some Boda ears.
But the thing is that it has to be done in a particular way, and all they did was shove some random letters. And it has to, you still got to follow a certain structure, otherwise it isn't working. The other book I've got coming up, which will be, it arrives tomorrow, hopefully, and I've got to proof it. But so I'll probably release it later, either later this week or next week, is a book that I wrote in, I was still in Bulgaria, so it's a really long time ago, about forming groups and magic groups. And it covers originally it covered how to set one up, why you set up a group, and it was fairly general for any type of esoteric group. But it covers all sorts of things, like how you make sure you don't end up as a cult, that sort of thing. But I added in a lot of things this time, a few chapters. It's still only a small book, but I got asked about it because it'd been out of print for so long, and someone said that it was quite handy for people who have problems when they have groups and they're trying to run groups from a practical point of view. And when I originally sat on it, because I wasn't that interested in re-releasing it, because it was written when I was in HOGD and I was really pleased with what I'd achieved, and I didn't think that all the problems that I'd written about could come back and get me. So there's a certain amount of invulnerability, and whenever I read it, I started and looked and thought, oh, you twat, how can you have written that? knowing what was coming in the future. So what I did is I went through it and updated it, and there's a lot of material there that was relevant, and still is relevant. And I still think, although it's not very popular, I mean, it's different over the other side of the Pacific, but other side of the Atlantic, but occult groups are quite small in Europe and always will be. And I was, at the time I was writing it, trying to think of the ideas of setting up smaller groups which would work and would be more efficient and may have fewer problems that the bigger ones face. I mean, for example, if you're 22 and running a group of 100 people, you are going to have ego problems, but you're also going to find that people are more likely to go for you. Whereas
that was the problem. The older people were like, who is this guy? What right does he have?
Yeah. Whereas if you're,
even though
you've got 10 people, it's less likely, and you're all friends, it's less likely to be problematic. So anyway, this book is designed to do that, and that's going to be, I've forgotten what do we call it in the end? I know, I changed the title because the title before was called Gathering the Magic, and the problem with that was the search engines were confusing it with a card game, and so I changed it to Esoteric Groups Survival
Kit.
Oh, the creation and survival. Creation and survival. So that is pretty close. Yeah, it's called, no, it's this is the one that Magic the Gathering was the original one, and now this one's going to be called Magic Groups, Their Creation and Survival. And yeah, that one will be cheap because it's not very big. Whereas the Geomancy one is huge, and it's probably the last really big book. I swore I'd never do another big book after Hayden, but this one I think needed to come out again because I needed to get that sort of stuff out of me.
It's very timely.
Yeah, I can now concentrate on the Substack without having to worry about getting any more books out for a while. I'm on 20. Cool. I've done 24, so.
I know people probably saw my intro and were like, "Wow, that's a lot of books," and it's like that's not even half of the ones, like, you know. And I wanted to actually, if I had had the time, it would have, like, the video design and editing. You complimented me and said you wish I had my skill at it on Facebook, and I skill on it. I'm just willing to burn 50 to 100 hours on a video. I don't think that's skill. I think a skilled person could do that better, faster. But, you know, when you don't have skill or money, you have time, and you can spend time just burning away. So if I'd had 20, 30, 40 more hours, I would have made a great video of are they plushies, the dolls you guys have used, created the mock-ups. I mean, I know on Facebook it's all in text, so you don't know how much I'm sincere when I'm like, these are awesome. A lot of us think they're awesome. They're very cool. Who knows if we could ever get them made with a Kickstarter?
We did check it out.
You were being cheeky when you did it, and then but everyone was like, these are awesome. I would turn into one of those crazy old ladies who collects dolls if you make these.
Yeah, one for each grade. Then we'd go to the god forms, and then so do the officers. Then we have to do the second order.
Then you got to do the historical personages. I want my little Yeats doll, my little Maud Gonne one, and I can have them go to a hotel and do peyote together, and you know, get X-rated.
No, it's
We're
true.
in the third hour. It's crazy time.
I know, but they were nice. I mean, they look very nice. I would collect them.
Yeah.
It's just a bit expensive.
Yeah, I know how producing I worked in game design. Producing things at scale it's not easy. It's not easy. And the Golden Dawn community is not as big as some might think.
Exactly.
And you're mentioning large groups. We had a big temple and order back in the day, but that was 25 years ago. Canada's occult groups are just as small, if not smaller than Europe, because Canada is so spread out, right? It's 15 hours of driving between each city for most of Canada. And we also have a tiny population. We have we've recently gone from 30 to 40 million, mind you, but that's not a population increase that's interested in the occult. And the population of Canada in general is just too small to have any subculture. We don't really have goth scenes or punk scenes. There's 30, 40, 50 people in those scenes, but then you have a falling out with one person and you're out of the scene. And that's not really a subculture, eh? If you can get booted out by one disagreement, that's not a subculture, that's a clique. So Canada has cliques, not subcultures. We really do need more cities and people in Canada, though we did the people without the cities and now we're in trouble, of course. So that's another issue. But yeah, Europe, groups are usually 10, 12 people, I'd say, if that. Sometimes they get up to 20, 25, but after that they start to run into ego issues even. I don't want to give examples, but some of us know what they are. And even at 20, 30 people, groups can get into quite a few issues. So it's really good news that this book is coming out in a new updated edition. I'm sure you've had a lot of insights and wisdom to put into it since then. So I really hope everyone gets it. Do you want to just say the title again clearly so that we all know what to keep our eye out for?
Right. Esoteric groups, their creation and survival. I'll post it on Facebook tomorrow probably, because I mean I've got the cover already done. I can actually probably even send you the cover. I'll send you the cover tonight if you like, and then I'll also put it on Facebook because I am expecting it tomorrow, and the courier said it would be here. All I've got to do is read it, and I don't think there's going to be anything wrong with it because it was already edited. Mostly, it's just my new stuff that I've got to check to see I haven't gone completely off the rails.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get that. Someone's asked Nick Fuller, who apparently might be related to Tony Fuller, since Nick Fuller is from New Zealand. He says, "Will we see more on Nick's YouTube channel?" That's something actually I know you don't want to do it, but maybe you might.
Yeah, I'd like to do it, but again, it was so much effort, and I'm not that
crazy
good
amount of effort.
Because when I do it, I want there to be jokes, and I want there to be cutaways and stuff like that, and otherwise I get bored doing it.
It's a lot of work.
And so yeah, I end up wanting to do Justin Bieber jokes and things like that, when Justin Bieber was topical. He isn't now. Nobody knows who he is.
Oh, he is. No, he's actually getting a lot of shit for upstaging and doing a better performance at Coachella than some chick singer. I can't remember who. But
you're getting old when you don't know who the chick singer is.
Yeah, I know, right? Apparently the fans of this popular female pop star, who I have not heard of, are really upset because Justin Bieber did a better job. And they're like, he's just some lame white guy. How can he do better than a girl? And it's all the rage. So there you go. Bieber is still keeping Canada in the headlines.
So he needs to be nuked from space then.
I think I love your sense of humor, and I bet the two of you, if you did, there's new tools. If you guys did do a YouTube again, because you have a YouTube, if you guys, there's tools now to make editing and video creation much easier. I could share with you the hacks I know. Things like the Descript app for editing video is saved me. As soon as I learned about Descript, it's just an editing app because you edit the video by editing the text. So this is a thing now. Before that, you have to crawl through the video, splice, edit, change. Now
that's what I was doing.
Yeah, delete the text, and the video is automatically edited with Descript. That saved me that cut out 20 hours of work a week for me and allowed me to do all these other things with my time. So there's a lot of tools there. Yeah, I still wouldn't. Someone says YouTube editing has gotten better. Yeah, the YouTube editor has improved, but I wouldn't rely on it over a tool designed for that, designed for purpose. So I'm happy to help if there's any way I could help you guys want to do. You know, you could just do 1 or 2 videos a month and maybe see how it goes. And I know I'm pushing hard for you to do it because, again, I'd love to see you guys out here in the wild west of YouTube. That's, you know, this is the last days of YouTube as we know it. It's going to become corporatized, more controlled, more locked down. So if you're gonna have some fun on YouTube, honestly, I think now is the time to get out there, because with the lawsuit that Zuckerberg, the Zuck lost, that lawsuit he lost, I think it was in Texas. It will probably terminate algorithms. It'll probably terminate algorithms, which means zero discoverability organically on any of these sites. So these are the final days of being able to find people and sort of have a bit of crazy fun on YouTube. And again, I'd love to see you do funny videos and making jokes about Justin Bieber.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we can get the Substack. Also, I was planning to try a few dry runs on just a straight. I don't know if you've noticed that Launder Cat does his addresses, and they're typically long, very entertaining and funny. And I thought I might be able to do one of those too, and we could do videos where you're talking to video lecture sorts of things, but on a casual basis, to go along with the Substack. I put up my YouTube videos on the Substack, and they got a lot of hits. They got more hits on the Substack than they did when I put them up on YouTube. I only had about 250 views for about a decade on those things. So it was a really, really long time before I got any mileage out of doing the things. And also the quality was awful. And I hadn't worked out, for example, here, the sound is, I've worked out a way around the sound problem, which I had in the other one. And the other one was the video quality, which was also awful. And so I think because when I had compressed it, I compressed it far too much to make it fit, and it wasn't very good quality. But yeah, I'll probably think about that. But at the moment, writing 4 or 5 Substacks a week is enough, and Paola writing her one and editing all the Substacks is also quite big. And I think Substacks is familiar ground. Writing is familiar ground for me, and I know how to handle that. I think the biggest problem humanity is going to face, hopefully long after I'm dead, is that we'll lose the writers, because there won't be any need. The logic is that they aren't needed. I mean, when you've got people saying, look, all I need to do is give a quick précis to ChatGPT and it will spit out something. And it's quite possible, but they're not even bothering editing them at the moment. And that journalists like me, and I've been being journalist for so long, are starting to see, there's no work there, because news stories are being gathered in a different way and written in a particular way. And it doesn't mean that the AI is wrong. It just means that there has to be different ways for work and writing and decent language, because ultimately what that will mean is all the words will start looking the same, and all the articles will no longer show personality. They'll show a standard structured writing style, which is going to be a bit sad.
But anyway. It's going to make the good writers and it's going to require that the good writers and great writers are going to shine out all the more.
No, they're not.
Future.
That's
I think they are.
No, I think the problem is
Because AI
the
can't
great
recreate great writing.
Yeah, but the great writers aren't going to get hired at the moment. If you look at a publishing company, if you look at a publishing company, a big publishing company like Penguin, they have 4 or 5 top writers in their stable, huge, and the rest of the money is earned through back catalogue. Anything else, new writers, they don't need them. They might bring on 1 or 2 a year, but and then that input or that style is going to be sucked into AI. Now, I'm a big fan of AI. I can see it has a lot of use, but also I can see it's got problems for the long-term future of things. Anyway,
absolutely. But the great writers won't shine in the mainstream publishers. The great writers will shine on Substack and independently, and they are.
They'll shine on the gutters. They won't be fed. No one's going to feed good writers. That's what happening. That's what's happening now. So at the moment,
I know.
People aren't buying books. People aren't paying any sort of subscriptions. So the net result is these people are going to have to go away. Yeah, I mean, all the effort you put into these sorts of things, how much money you can get out of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, from the commercials and ads that you. Thank you to the audience for watching and putting up with the ads, but it does give me something. Not much. I think I get from ad revenue on YouTube. I think I get like $30-40 a month. So the super chats and memberships really help. Thank you, everyone. Get a membership, join my YouTube, all that stuff. If YouTube just started with just 1 video a month on YouTube, that would be fun, and it would feed to your Substack. It would be great. We don't want to gang up on you two here, but clearly there's an interest in your stuff, and there's so much.
What I wanted to do is I wanted to have a my ideal would be to have a blog, a video interviewing thing, where the format isn't sort of just talking to people and where they promote their books, but where you actually get them and challenge the shit out of them. Where you have people who come on and they're used to saying this sort of thing, and you ask them tricky questions, really hard questions. I found Crateropia. Oh, that's fun, that book. Apparently,
I had to get the hardcover of this one.
I heard that there's a group in France that's claiming that the lineage from Crateropia, they call themselves Crateropia. Hang on, I think I'm the only one that translated that. That was translated in French, and it never was a group. It never existed. I think there's a group in America that used it as a basis as well. But it's quite funny just to see it. It's because it's a suggested outline of a group, and it's historically really important. But claiming lineage from a book is particularly funny. But again, that didn't do very well either.
Yeah.
So,
well, here's a comment. We got a member of Mensa in the comments saying something truly brilliant that we've never heard before. Petal Lawrence, spirituality is not something to make money from. It's for personal development, and it should be free.
Yeah, it should be. But if the person who's giving you training or helping you to have personal development dies because they can't afford medicine, or gets too old and can't afford to feed themselves, whose spiritual development is being advantaged from, is getting an advantage from that? I mean, saying, okay, I've had a lot of teachers in my life, and some of them, well, they were cunts, but they helped me develop. Now, I wouldn't want to see them, they for example, I used to go to these little weekend workshops. They weren't very expensive, but I got a lot out of them. And a lot of the stuff I teach comes from indirectly from me processing those workshops. Now, I don't think that should be for free. That had value to me. And spirituality, you can't make money from spirituality, but you can show someone how to find spirituality, how to learn a particular spiritual technique and process a book, write a book, whatever. Having people tell you you should do that for nothing, that sort of gets on my tits.
I just love it when someone says that certain people don't deserve to make a living for their skills and
well,
time.
I mean,
it's like everyone deserves to make a living so they don't die on the street, except for you. Your time is worthless. Die. And that's what I hear when I see comments like this. Yeah, you can go do spirituality on your own for free, but if you want my time, I deserve to eat food too.
And the other thing is these are often people who tithe 10% of their income. But when you I forgot my point now. I got so outraged.
Oh, sorry, brother. I know. I knew that
I
one
know.
would rile you up, and that was I feel like I
wouldn't mind, but nobody's paid me any money. That's the thing. If people paid me money, I was getting 20,000-30,000 pounds a year from doing books and spiritual things, and I'd be okay with it. I can't convince people to spend $8 on a monthly Substack, and it's like, what?
Nick Fuller says, I think absolutes are dangerous. There are instances where money in exchange for teaching is necessary. Yeah. Well, everyone deserves to get paid for their time. That's just how human life works. Unless you want to go back to the olden days of serfdom, which we're on our way to quickly. And that's basically slavery. Occultology says you get what you pay for. That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
OTA.
And that's what we're trying to do with the Substack, is we're trying to make sure that there is a community and there is information that is useful to people. And it's not shit, and it's not recycled Agrippa, which is what people are making a lot of money on Etsy.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah, there's people. I mean, I joke with Jason Louv that if we really wanted to make money, we'd start selling candles on Etsy, and it's true. It's not a joke. You could do really well. Raven Tarot Meditation
somebody's
says
charging
nothing is free.
Someone's charging $500 for a shit talisman that they say was consecrated at the correct time, and if you put in the time they say they created it, it turns out the moon was void, of course. I mean, that's a basic thing you don't do.
Yeah. So the person who we've lambasted, thank you for the comment, because honestly, if you hadn't made that comment, then I would have realized I should have paid someone to make that comment. So you're serving the light, even as you said something inflammatory to us. But you've responded with, I understand your point, so we'll hear you out. But in ancient times, so I love that phrase, teaching spiritual things wasn't paid for until the church came along and monetized spirituality.
That's not true.
It's not true.
That's absolutely not true. The whole thing about the philosophers in ancient Greece and Alexandria and eventually in Rome were supported by their followers, very much so. So you'd have it's a society where you had Plato didn't do it for nothing. His followers supported him entirely. And so the same with Socrates and all these other types. So, and the Egyptian priests in the temples, they only started going down the toilet. I mean, they were supported by their communities in much the same way the church is now. And they started going down the toilet when they ran out of money. And it's, you can't, again, it's this generalization thing. You think it's like this, but it isn't. And the church actually didn't tend to monetize spirituality at all, because they didn't want to teach people spirituality. They just wanted them to go to church, say the prayers, go home, and that's it.
And the church, in fact, banned other people from making a living doing this up until the 20th century. Magic was even not legalized until the 20th century at some point. And so it was only with the internet that spiritual teachers and practitioners in new religious movements have been facilitated and democratized through the web to be able to start actually surviving and focusing and bringing higher quality of work to students and putting on events and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to let Petal Lawrence here make their final point, because they didn't make a final point. I value experience, and that the teacher should earn money. Okay, thank you. So we've maybe changed their mind. There should be an equal exchange. Agreed, but that's fair. But what I'm saying is that in the past, spirituality shouldn't be elitist. That's my point. Yeah, you're not going to get any argument here, I don't think, on that one, for sure. Well said.
I don't think spirituality has been elitist, but...
Well, if I can just say something about this fact about paying, about courses and stuff like that. We are seeing this very bizarre phenomenon where we have expensive retailers of specific courses, where basically we have from few hundreds in a best case scenario to thousands, including initiations and including non-initiatory courses. Nick, can you just mute your microphone, please? Sorry. Yeah, basically we have this huge problem where we have some kind of a category of people that is completely okay paying low quality courses or superficial courses that maybe teach you something, but it's like, once a week for 3 months or something, and you pay hundreds and thousands of euro, and they're okay. I mean, there is no balance in these things. First, because it's very difficult to evaluate the competence and quality of whatever is offered on a market. And the problem is that some people have absolutely no issues in paying this amount of money, which I think is outrageous, because it's not that is elitist, because in that way you just allow only people with a certain wealth or income to be able to pay for those courses. And there's still people that pay for those courses, and what we get criticized for $8 a month. You don't even pay a book for that. Okay, so there is a lack of perspective here. People need to realize that there is a difference, and it's true that we have an open market from that point of view, but not every teacher and not every teaching is the same, and it's up to the student to be able to discern and evaluate what is a ripoff and what is really a real teaching value for basically nothing. Consider that I don't know how many traditions do that, but there are traditions that make initiation accessible through payment. We never ask for payment for initiations. We never ask anything. We made sort of a partial fundraising for the vault once, but we put most of the money, and the rest, there were not many members at that time. They put a little amount of money. And in years of being initiated with no costs, basically everything was on us. For example, we made available our own house instead of renting a place, which would have had some costs. We never asked for a fund of materials, candles, incense, stuff like that. So these things, it's like people think in reverse. So instead of saying, oh, wow, this is real value, and they're not asking, the more people see that you're not charging, and the more they think that you have no value. The more they pay, and the more they think that what they're paying is of high value, when instead is a bloody ripoff. So what do you think about these people? What do you think about their level of awareness? What do you think about the level of knowledge, their level of discernment? How do they get? They can't even understand if they're being ripped off. So this is really, really bad. And this is quite recent problem, because there was some kind of, this monetization aspect of spirituality became standard. It's the standard now. But unfortunately, I'm not saying that people shouldn't sell courses. I'm saying that there should be differentiation, and also there are courses that are really, really inaccessible, and in that case, you should think twice. And also, when you see an organization that creates courses in a form of a production chain, when you have an organization that keeps 20, 30, 40 different topics, and they create this production chain where every bloody day they sell something. Okay, you think that's
flag.
okay?
Yeah, because like you and me and Nick, we could all bang out a course relatively quickly on every single grimoire, on every single topic, like Marie Silva on Amazon or any of these things, right? Like I still only have, like, I think one real course, which is my Heptarchia course, which is a purist approach to the Heptarchia. We could bang ones out on everyone, but like, is there depth? Is there real refinement there? Is there real knowledge and experience? One of my supporters here says, don't forget to calculate the value of life experience, which is hard won for the people who teach us insights and humility. There's so many great comments in the chat, we can't even get to all of them, but like, the training that goes into producing someone like you guys, Dr. Litchwell, like he's outside the university system now. Even when he was in the university system, they wouldn't let him teach, and we won't say why, because everyone already knows why. It's just not okay to say it. I think it's illegal to say it now in Canada. Maybe not, who knows? I can't keep up with our crazy laws anymore, but he needs to survive, otherwise he can't keep translating Coptic and Greek for us, and we want him to keep he's a beautiful writer, and what else is he meant to do if he has this crazy education, which is crazy education? And like, even I'm still paying $800 a month of my student loans for the rest of my life, right? Like, so if you value what I learned from my experience in education, my master's of divinity and all the seminary thing and all the experience, then yeah, we gotta stay off the street and put a bit of food in our mouths. So I appreciate that the people understand that. I appreciate that the person who brought that up clarified their view, or was maybe transformed by our dialogue, and ends up saying, yeah, we should discuss this respectfully without arrogance. I mean, yeah, but we got to have fun at the same time. So it's a little soupçon of arrogance, or humor, as we might call it, is fun. And yes, it's true. The economic absurdities are often the result of willful ignorance, and there's lots of red flags for the grifters and the people who don't really mean it. And yes, Canada is messed up, and a shout out to Michigan and American Canadians. I don't know what that means, but there we go. We really lit up the comments here at the end with this fun. If I can, before we get to move to the final farewell segment, we can go as long as we want, of course.
It's been 3 hours.
Before we do that, let me do one last shout out promo, because what I've been able to do through the support of my students and work is create events that I couldn't do otherwise. no, like you just can't. How would you just put on events and buy tickets, plane tickets and hotels for presenters and bring people together if you don't have resources? And no one's handing that money out. I mean, Canada is sending all our money away to other countries, while most people here are skipping meals or homeless even. And so it's the students and supporters and all of you patrons and channel members that allow me to put on really cool events like I'm doing. And so here we got some events coming up. I'll be in Austin, Texas in June. You can sign up and attend online. Registration is open now, and this is what we're doing. And so I'm just going to do this little shout out here, and obviously hopefully Nick and Paola and Nick, you'll hopefully be a part of this or one of these events soon that I'm doing. Coming to Europe, coming your way next year. So I'd love to get you there. So check out what we're up to in Austin, Texas this year.
The Arcane Research Society returns to bring esoteric scholarship and practice in 2026 with 2 major events held in Austin, Texas. Register for an annual membership and attend online or in person all of our annual events, including June 13th, our spring workshop, and November 6th through 8th, EnochiaCon, our full esotericism conference. The ARS Spring Workshop features 3 workshops led by Jason Louv, Craig Williams, and Frater RC. Spend a whole day in downtown Austin, Texas, enjoying these hands-on deep dives with experts in their fields. Register today for all live events included with ARS annual membership, Spring Workshop, and EnochiaCon, which features too many amazing presenters to name. Sign up today at arcaneresearchsociety.com.
There you go. Sign up today, support our work, and I appreciate. Yeah, we're over half. So, it was a slow build. The first year was rough. We had to do it only online because my sister passed. Last year we pulled it off in person, and Canadians didn't really show up to Vancouver, but Americans showed up. So Americans really made last year in Vancouver a success. And thanks to Dr. Justin Sledge and Aaron Leach for coming. And we have a huge lineup this year, 16 in-person presenters, 22 presenters total, and it's going to be an awesome event. And I was able to rent the entire building downtown that I wanted in Austin, whereas in Vancouver I could only afford a small room at the university. So thank you to America for being cheaper and more affordable than Canada still for now. So yeah, well, it's possible. Let's have some fun because World War III is on its way.
Yep.
Next stop, the apocalypse. Doot, 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 doot. Everybody off in hell.
Exactly.
Well, so what do you guys want to talk about before we send you off for your evening espresso?
I think we said so much.
We did. I'm very proud of us for going this long. In fact, since I know it's getting late over there, and you two probably have still 4 or 5 hours of evening rituals to do. I'm sure, right? Because yeah. Nick Farrell says 3 more hours. Yeah. That would be a big super chat to get us to go 3 more hours. You might have to pay for someone's rent at this point. But yeah, any thoughts or last words, or I don't know, anything you want to talk about?
Are there any questions?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We should. Oh, there actually was. Okay, I'm just gonna. There was a couple that we skipped. Here we go. We'll put these on the screen for now. Well, okay. Here's a question from. This is the same person who asked recently, who we had our little digital fisticuffs with. Petal Lawrence, thank you very much again for your participation, and you made this, you caused the most engaging aspect of this whole podcast with your comments, so we really appreciate that. And you didn't you didn't get all thin-skinned and huffy, as they say in the UK. Question: from which plane of the Tree of Life do the angels of the Watchtower and those of the Heptarchy come? That's an interesting question, because the Watchtower and the Heptarchy are very different, but I will not answer, even though this is definitely my wheelhouse, and throw it to my beautiful guests.
Okay, the Watchtowers, although they're supposed to be elemental, they're attributed to Malkuth. Because they've got a form, because you're visualizing a form, they're Yetziratic, so they're Yesodic. And most things to do with Enochian are sublunar. So I know that a lot of people would disagree with me because they're supposed to be super powerful and holy, but I think it's proper shit. And if you read what the Dee's diaries, you can see the sorts of things that his angels were messing around with. And these are not holier than thou angels. These are taking the piss out of you, stealing your underwear and hiding it in a priest's drawer. These are not high level angels, and my experience of them has been very physical. So I mean, one of the things that I noticed when I was playing around with them, and when I started out using Enochian, was we tended to get a lot of nosebleeds until we got used to the energy. Now, something that physical is not going to be higher than Tifereth or something like that. Heptarchy, we have them down as Malkuth. They're planetary reflections in Malkuth, but again, very low level angels, not particularly high. You can, perhaps lower astral. We tend to invoke them in Moa, which we're not supposed to, in the 110, but that's simply because they're high up to a 110, so that you can probably get away with it. Their job seems to be mostly material based. If you look at how Dee generated them, they are again material. So I think that pretty much covers it. Angels of the Watchtowers.
People are always shocked when I say that, because they read Crowley and they're thinking like, oh, the Aethers takes me to Tiferet or Ketheret through Lil. And I always give them the traditional point of view, which is like, the Aethers sort of emanate out from Malkuth, and their sublunar spirits in the Watchtowers. People are surprised to hear that, but that is what they are. That's where they are. It's why they're so dense. It's why they're so powerful. And you said something that blew my mind, but finish your thought. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, ether means air to the Elizabethans, and so you have air in levels. So the highest to the lowest. There was a belief in the Enochian system, whether or not people like it or not, that the lowest bit is the planet, the highest bit is the throne of God, and this is just a fire between the throne of God. It's a literal level between heaven and earth, and doesn't take into account the universe, doesn't take into account the solar system. It just takes into account the airs. Now, you could use them in a nice Gnostic way, but Dee didn't. Also, if you look, each one of those ethers is connected to a part of the world. So Tolpan, for example, was Australia. So you have an angel of Australia called Tolpan, and I hope I'm remembering it right. It's years since I've done this. But the idea is when I did a invocation, I think it's to Tex. I can't remember. It was a very long time ago, and I was doing the scrying, and I saw a mountain range, lots and lots of mountains there, and there was an angel there. We spoke to him. It said that it was an angel that was going to be speeding up a destructive process in this region. The people who were doing the experiment didn't tell me what the experiment was for, so I didn't know what Tex was. and I hadn't looked it up. And I didn't know what this area was that it was connected to. And it turned out that it was the Balkans. I was looking at, I now know, I was looking at the Balkans, and it was just before the First Balkan War. So the Czechoslovakia collapsed. And what this angel was doing was bringing about the collapse of Czechoslovakia. And it was an interesting experience, but again, earth-based.
Very cool. You know, so you said something that just blew my mind. From 1998 to about 2001. Yeah, about then. I was constantly starting to get nosebleeds and sometimes even fainting. And I always chalked that up. I chalked that up years later to the onset of the celiac disease I have, and its degeneration as I approached adulthood. You know, it started to kick in and get worse in my late teen, first at puberty, then throughout the teens and 20s, it got worse and worse till in my 30s I figured out what it was and why my body was just breaking down. But I always chalked up those nosebleeds but that was the time I was first starting to get to use Enochian.
Yeah.
And so because I was in Canada as well, every time I had those nosebleeds, especially when I fainted, you know, my classmates in college or high school would rush me to the hospital, and it's Canada. So they'd give me a full CT, CAT scan, all these tests that would normally bankrupt someone. But of course they were all free, and they were like, no, nothing's wrong with you. And, you know, they never
go back to school, you lazy shit.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. Well, though, if you're fainting and covered in blood, they are worried.
Well, actually, the thing is that the nosebleed thing is important. It's not just because it's Enochian. It's because when you're dealing with magic for the first time, your sphere of sensation isn't adjusted to that energy. And so one of the first things to go is your nose. Another one people get is they get dizzy. Because the sphere of sensation starts to spin.
So I was getting nosebleeds and getting dizzy starting from practicus, then onward. And then by the time I had been in 5-6 for 2 years and completed all my tools, done all my base stuff, and then finally started serving as did my first term as Hierophant, all that stuff went away.
Yeah, that would be about right.
Never came back.
Never came back. Once you get used to the energy, you can handle it.
Wow.
But you're a living reason why you never train kids in this in their teens.
I love that a whole period of my life finally makes actual sense, because the celiac thing was always it was a stretch. It's like, well, that doesn't track with the disease, that symptom. Then again, we don't study that disease in Canada at all, of course, because we don't have the money in our health system because it's socialized. Anyway, enough of that. So wonderful. What a great question, Petal Lawrence. I mean, this viewer has really been galvanized some of the most exciting moments of our episode today. So thank you. I owe you a drink. Let's see what other questions we have before I let you two get off to your evening ablutions, espressos, or whatever it is you crazy Romans do. It must be amazing living in Rome. I'm so jealous. I mean, seriously. Have you ever been to do you remember the Druid's View or the Druid's Den near the Colosseum? I had a gig booked there in 2005 at the Druid's View and the Druid's Rock that was in sight of the Colosseum, but our car broke down, and then one of my bandmates got dumped by her boyfriend. So the next morning she stole the car and drove back to Amsterdam and flew to Wales to try and win him back. And so we had no car to finish our tour. So I never got to play in Rome. I've never been to Italy, but I will make it there. Okay. Questions. There was at least one other that I saw that we didn't get to. When I hear Watchtowers, I always hear Jimi Hendrix in my hand. Well,
in your hand, you've got a very unusual anatomy.
I'm sure Jimi Hendrix would be honored to know that he's inspired the use of your hand. No, we know what you mean, head. Yeah, that's because you're a groovy person. So yeah, Watchtower. all along the Watchtower. From which plane of the Tree of Life is Jimi Hendrix from? Okay, I'm sorry, I thought it was a serious question, but I mean, if Jimi Hendrix existed in only one sphere, I mean, it would be Venus, wouldn't it? Or would it be? I don't know. Who knows?
Well, he's dead, so
he's
he's a shell of the dead. He's hanging around in Yesod.
Oh God. Okay, I think we've got through it all. We've had it. Nick and Paola, especially Paola, because this is your first podcast. Welcome to the world. It's good to have you on the internet with us. You have a wonderful mind and spirit, and your artwork has been a beautiful gift to my own practice the past 6 years since I started, since I was back and able to get books again and stuff. Everyone here has been very grateful. Yeah, let's hear it in the chat for Nick and Paola for sharing so much of their time. 3 hours is not easy. And we've gone we're well over that now. Someone just says Cliff Oth, of course, because why not? Yeah. My presentation in Austin is actually on Cliff Oth theurgy. I'm not one for the dark side of these things usually, but neither am I incapable. You know, I haven't ignored it either. And I do have a little gift to give from my own life and experiences and insight when it comes to that one topic. But in generally, I don't really go into that darker stuff. But I'm going to do this workshop one last time in my life, and it'll be recorded so everyone can enjoy it here on after. And thank you. Yeah, people are saying thank you and looking forward to the YouTube channel. It would be cool if you guys did a video a month, but again, you do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do, and
especially the crochet toys.
The crochet toys would be so cool. Oh, we gotta make it happen. I know we can make it happen. You know, where there's a will, there's a way, and there's a lot of will behind this.
There must be
for some reason, middle-aged men are all of a sudden excited to buy dolls.
Yes, we have to.
Yeah. All right, we have to.
Okay.
My friends, it's been an honor. Love and light and extension. Thank you to these amazing adepts and friends. We guys owe you a great debt of thanks for your nonstop, indefatigable work in sharing your own path and journey in life and lessons with us all. And as Invisible Scientist says, thank you for your time. It's the most precious commodity in the universe. That is a fact. There's nothing we could say better than that. So thank you, everyone. And a bunch more viewers just dove in, but they'll have to wind it back and start from the beginning. And I'm sure we'll do a part 2 of this at some point. Go get the new Geomancy, Complete Geomancy book. Get the new book on how not to turn your order and temple into a cult. I forget the title already, but it'll be posted. I'll share it. We'll all share it.
And sign up for the Substack.
Sign up for the Substack, or you're a nerd. No, sign up for it, because otherwise, within a year or two from now, the whole occult community is going to be aware of a whole bunch of stuff you're just not even.
You'll have missed out on a huge number of things.
Hit that FOMO button.
Or drown in ignorance.
Drown in ignorance. Paola, you want to send us off with a little something fun in Italian, a little fun Italian farewell?
Ciao ragazzi.
Ciao.
Baci. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Welcome to Magic Without Fears, the Hermetic podcast with Frater RC. My truly honored guests today are Paola and Nick Farrell. Nick is the author of many popular works in the Golden Dawn tradition and modern occultism, and now they have been writing the Lord Manticore Occult Training blog, which, if you're not following its monthly articles, you're falling behind. Stay tuned for Complete Geomancy by Nick, his newest release. Holy art thou, Lord of the universe. Holy art thou whom nature hath not formed. Holy art thou, the vast and the mighty one, Lord of the light and of the darkness.
Like and subscribe.